Please, as a reminder, switch off your cell phones. We are ready to start. Thank you.
Good morning, Ms. Boy.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. This morning, Commissioners, we'll commence with the evidence of General Hilda Kosi Senthumule. The witness, Chair, is ready to be sworn in and has indicated that she'll be taking the oath.
I could tell from the end of the general statement that she'll be swearing. Just a minute. Good morning, General.
Good morning, Commissioner. Thank you, Chair.
Do you swear that the evidence you're going to give is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth? If so, please raise your right hand and say, "So help me God."
So help me God.
Thank you.
Thank you.
General, can you confirm that in front of you, you have two files?
I confirm.
And in the first file, there is a statement.
Yes.
Can you confirm, if you go into the file with the statement at page 26, can you confirm that that is your signature at the end of the statement?
Yes, it is my signature. Thank you.
And General, can you confirm the correctness of the contents of the statement?
It is correct. I've verified. Thank you.
And lastly, General, can you confirm that this is a statement that you have prepared for purposes of giving testimony before this commission?
I can confirm that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. General, can you start by just telling the commissioners what your rank is and the position that you currently hold?
Okay. Sorry, Commissioners. I am Hilda Kosi Mavimbela Senthumule, and I'm currently holding the position of Lieutenant General within the SAPS.
And which position are you holding?
Currently, I'm the Acting Deputy National Commissioner, but in my appointed position, I am the Divisional Commissioner for Detective and Forensic Services.
Thank you, General. Prior to dealing with your tenure within SAPS, can you give a brief overview of your experience prior to joining SAPS?
Prior to joining the police, I actually was appointed in State Security Agency, then NEA in the late 90s. And I actually started my career as an investigator, junior investigator within counterintelligence, particularly vetting investigations. And I moved on to become an analyst, and I became a trainer. I grew up in ranks within state security, and I became the component head for domestic intelligence collection in the province of Northern Cape. I also occupied the position of component head, counterintelligence investigation, still in the Northern Cape province. I was subsequently requested by the then DG, Mr. Manzini, God rest his soul, who passed, to come and head IS-32 within the National Head Office of State Security, where I was responsible for ensuring that our members who are coming into the state security are beyond reproach. So I will do those counterintelligence investigations. I think in 2008, I was given 3 offers, one for counterintelligence outside the state security, personal security vetting investigations, and also of NICOC and the police. I first chose NICOC, and I went to NICOC. I stayed there for a while, realizing that it was just too academic, and I was bound to sit behind the desk. I felt uncomfortable. Then I opted to join the police. That was in 2008.
General, excuse my ignorance. Good morning.
Good morning,
What is NICOC?
Commissioner.
What is NICOC?
Oh, NICOC is the National Intelligence Coordinating Committee. That is the structure that coordinates all intelligence services and also provides the country with estimates of what is likely to happen in terms of threats to our security.
Thank you, General. And then after you joined, in 2008, when you joined SAPS, which position did you assume, and can you briefly go through your trajectory within the SAPS?
I must state that joining SAPS, I joined as a lateral entry, and I was already at a director level. It was before the ranks were actually altered to the military ranks. So I became a director for counterterrorism. And that structure was responsible for both right-wing extremism as well as Islamic extremism investigations. If I may proceed.
Yes, General.
Yeah, I think pivotal to my appointment as the section head for counterterrorism, it was just before the World Cup, and I think it was the time General Kele came into the SAPS as well. So we worked, I think I was one of the 2 junior members who were part of that committee, where we were providing security updates and appraisals in terms of counterterrorism to the SAPS World Cup Committee.
Thank you, General. And then in 2012, you talked to further positions that you occupied.
Yeah, I think before we go into 2012, in 2010, just after the World Cup, I was appointed as the first head of organized crime for DPCI. I stayed in DPCI for a year, and I was subsequently redeployed to crime intelligence, where I became the component head for counter and security intelligence. An opportunity arose, I think, when there were changes in crime intelligence. I then became the head of labor relations. For the first time in my life, I was in HR, and I became the state chief's negotiator, a position that I enjoyed because it actually broadened my scope of understanding management and issues that touches the conditions of service of members. And just maybe to move on, in 2014, I became the component head for leadership, management, and development within Division HRD, where I was responsible for all SAPS leadership training.
General, can you then speak to your appointment in 2016 that ultimately then resulted in your 2021 appointment as the Divisional Commissioner?
When General Pashlani was appointed as acting National Commissioner, he redeployed me to detectives, where I was the first head of organized crime investigations, which was just reintroduced within SAPS. And I occupied that position until I was appointed the Divisional Commissioner, Detective and Forensic Services in 2021.
Just at that point, I'm not going to interrupt you much, okay. But I just want to ask you, you may even take notes if you have something to write with and on. I want you to apply your mind, and right at the end I will raise these issues that I want you to note. I assume that as the Divisional Commissioner for Detective and Forensic Services, that the laboratories, forensic laboratories, fall under your mandate. Is that a correct assumption?
It is correct, Commissioner.
Yes. Now, I want you to tell us, right at the end when I raise this again, if you have identified the causes of the delays with the tests conducted at the laboratory, and if you have, what are the causes of the delays? And secondly, on my understanding, the delays have existed for a very long time. Is that correct? And then again, why was this situation allowed to last for as long as it has? And then, have you applied your mind to solutions to the problems? And if you have, what solutions have you come up with? And how soon can those be implemented? Sorry for interrupting the flow, General and Ms. Bowe. As I say, that's for later, right at the end.
Noted, Commissioner.
Thank you, Chair.
And
General,
perhaps I should specifically refer to ABIS in this context.
Yes.
One of the witnesses, I forget his name.
Brigadier Kabela.
Yes, him. My understanding of his evidence was that the ABIS system is not used optimally. Can you please address that as well? Address it specifically, and also tell us what your ideas on improvements such that this gets used optimally, what your thoughts are in that regard. Thank you. Yes, Ms. Bowe.
thank you, Chair. General, if we could then move to paragraph 5 of your statement, where you just set out various roles and institutions that you play a part in. Can you just give a brief summary of those?
I'll start by reflecting on things that we have achieved as an organization where I played a role in terms of leadership. And I think one of those touches on the question that the chairperson has asked that I address at the end of my statement or of my delivery. I played a role in the expansion of the Gqeberha Forensic Science Laboratory, which actually was only exclusively dealing with ballistics as well as scientific analysis and chemistry. So we expanded this lab to cover the DNA analysis as part of us trying to address the issues of the rising exhibits of DNA, and also making sure that we have a good turnaround time for us to be able to provide the courts with the evidence as required. This was a presidential project, and I must say that the plan is to expand the particular FSL footprint throughout the country. I also championed a number of projects for the Divisional Commissioner where we were expanding and increasing resources, particularly in the division, detective and forensic services. I'm also a co-chairperson of the SAPS and BAXA Business Participative Partnership, where we are looking at pioneering a digitized police station, and basically we are looking at improving police stations to be able to deliver services as well as reduce the overload of people going in to ask for diverse services. So we are working on that model, and I think I'll touch on it, Chair, when I respond to what are we doing as interventions to address the delays in terms of forensic material to courts. Further, I'm also a project manager for the IAWP, which I actually led successfully in 2013. I was the project manager for the inaugural first ever IAWP conference in South Africa. I think for Commissioner Kumalo, just not to confuse you with my acronyms, IAWP, it's the International Association for Women Police, a structure that has existed for more than 100 years. And also I became its coordinator in the SADC region. And at some point I was also for 2 terms a board member for PolMed, where we were responsible for taking care of the members' health care as well as emotional and mental wellness needs. Then currently, I'm also the director for CID. CID, I think we would all know, it means Criminal Investigations Division for South Africa in the region, meaning that also I serve on the permanent subcommittee of the police chiefs, which will be the subco body of the region. I'm also, I think, lastly, Chair, I'm the co-chairperson of the Trilateral Planning Cell. That is a structure that the ministers initiated to look at your countering narcotics in the region, and this particular planning cell covers 3 countries, that's South Africa, Mozambique, and Tanzania. Although now we have invited a number of countries, including Angola, Lesotho, Swaziland, to be part of the TPC, as we call it. Thank you.
Thank you, General. Oh.
General, good morning. You have there 5.2. What is that organization? What does it do?
Okay. The Southern African Regional Police Chiefs Cooperation Organization, this is a structure or a body that actually brings all the police chiefs in the region, and they coordinate on issues of crime in the region, particularly your either cross-border crimes or transnational organized crime. So the National Commissioner would be the chairperson for the country. However, the chairperson rotates. I think currently it is sitting with, with Malawi. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner.
General, if you could then move to the key roles and responsibilities of your division with a particular focus on the units that you oversee.
Okay. Chairperson, under my leadership, I actually have 8 components that I'm leading, starting with your crime investigation service, serious violent crime investigations, organized crime investigations, commercial crime investigations. Also from the detectives, lastly will be the family violence, child protection, and sexual offenses. If I move to forensic, I'm also responsible for criminal records and crime scene management, forensic science laboratories, as well as quality management component.
Thank you, General. And as you indicated, you are currently the acting DNC in crime detection. What are your responsibilities there?
Okay. My responsibility entails providing oversight as well as strategic direction for 3 critical investigation programs within the SAPS, or let me say the crime detection business value chain. That will be crime intelligence, detective services, and forensic services.
Thank you, General. We are now going to move on to the topic of disbandment of the PKTT. And to begin with, you explained that in December 2024, you were actually deployed to the Western Cape. Can you explain the deployment, the purpose of the deployment, and when you then returned back to the head office?
Thank you, Commissioners. As part of protocols and as a requirement, all senior officers in the SAPS are deployed in support of provinces during the festive season, and the rationale is for us to monitor and oversee police operations in that particular area where you are deployed. So I was deployed in the Western Cape in support of General Pategile, who's the PC for Western Cape. And that would mean also doing your field, how can I call it? We also go to the field where we do stop and searches, we do roadblocks, we make sure that there's visibility in the province, as well as we also assist the members and guide them in terms of doing your tracking and also tracing of wanted suspects.
Thank you, General. And when did you then return to head office?
I returned back to head office on the 3rd of January. However, I already had submitted my pre-planned leave that took place from the 6th, returning back to work on the 17th of January, 2025.
Thank you, General. You then say on your return to work, you had an informal discussion with Lieutenant General Kumalo. Can you tell the Commission about that interaction and what you were discussing?
Maybe before I start, I want to provide context in terms of my relationship with General Kumalo. And I know that this maybe also will touch on Commissioner Kumalo. I actually grew up Kosi Kumalo, and that is my father's surname. However, when I went to high school, when I was doing standard 8 at the time, I wanted to honor my grandfather who raised me, and that's a Mavimbela. So literally, I changed my surname back to Mavimbela, and I became Kosi Mavimbela. So me and Dumisani Kumalo, General Kumalo, we call each other Bhuti Ngosisi. So uthi siswami ngithi bhuti wami. And normally we don't ever have a serious, intense interaction. I mean, even with all these challenges, we don't have hey, come sit down. It's still bhuti wami, siswami, and it's still mama uthi. So as I came back from leave, we meet, I can't remember where, but it was in one of the meetings. And he said to me, Siswami, uboss wakho uthi mangunikeza ama-dockets we PKTT. Just like that. And we ngabuza ngobani. Then he says to me, no, uthi uminister unikeze a directive that those dockets should come to the detectives. He says no, he gave him that instruction in writing. So I then said to General Kumalo, unfortunately, so mina ngiyiphoyisa. Uba iphoyisa means ukuthi when you instruct me, it must be in writing. And I think the discussion didn't go further. But also what prompted my mind at the time was, Kodu Kumalo has been the project coordinator of this task team from 2018. And I was there. I think when the meeting was called by Minister Kele, we were all invited. I think it was myself, General Ramatswele. Ramatswele was the section head for, at the time it was called specific crimes. Now it's called serious violent crimes. It was me, him, it was General Tsumane was the DNC at the time. General Musikidi was the Divisional Commissioner at the time. So we were all invited to that meeting that took place in General Mkwanazi's office, and he was the acting provincial commissioner. So he wasn't telling me something that I didn't know, because I would have prompted to understand what are you talking about. So I knew. And as far as I knew, he was doing well. When Minister Kele came and General Kumalo was appointed as the head of CI, I think a decision was taken that he actually proceeds with that role. And all of us supported it. So there was no way that now I could come and say, bring me the dockets. I needed to understand why. And for me, it was not in writing, so I couldn't act on it. And by the way, I think the commissioner spoke about Bo Mabari Bari. I didn't want to rely on Mabari Bari. I wanted something I could read. Thank you, commissioners.
General, somewhere in your statement, you mentioned the reason why the dockets had to come to head office. Yes. And on that you take issue, if I understand correctly, with the reason that was given by General Mutsepe.
Okay.
Do I understand the position correctly? Yes.
Yes.
What I'm not sure comes out clearly from your statement is whether you personally were told what that reason was, and who, if you were told, the person that told you was. And at what stage? Why must the dockets come to head office?
Okay.
Who told you and at what stage?
Nobody told me and Kumalo that the dockets must come to Pretoria. The letters, okay, eventually I got my letter on the 2nd of February. And I think just after that, the minister called a meeting in Cape Town, where he basically, I think it was an orientation meeting where we had to present to him specific topics. And I think mine was on the capacitation of the detectives. And unfortunately, lo and behold, on the 6th of February, my nephew Tato was fatally wounded, and I had to return home on the day because I couldn't cope. So for that reason, I think I took leave to be able to assist my family in making sure that Tato gets to rest appropriately. On returning, now Kumalo and I, we both had instructions that said, you, General Kumalo, in your capacity as the project manager for the PKTT, hand over the dockets to General Senthumule, who is the Divisional Commissioner for Detective and Forensic Services. And I think the instructions were clear because if you look at it, it actually stated how the handover should take place. So Kumalo and I, he already had, I think, the National Commissioner's letter, which I never had view of. I relied on him when he said to me, the Natcom had already written to the minister to provide a winding down approach proposal for his approval, for the minister's approval.
And your February letter was from General Sibiya.
General Sibiya, yes.
And it said nothing about the reason for the dockets to be brought to head office.
Maybe if the chairperson could allow me to read it into the record.
Yes, yes.
Thank you. I think it should be on the other bundle, HKS2. Okay. The letter read as such. The South African Police Service established the National Task Team on Political Killings to address the concerning rise in politically motivated murders and related crimes involving political figures. This specialized task team was dedicated to investigating, resolving, and preventing such incidents to ensure justice and maintain political stability in affected regions. On 31 December 2024, the Minister of Police issued a directive to the National Commissioner to immediately deactivate and disband the NTT-PK, which we call the PKTT. And he said in his letter, this decision was informed by an assessment that the task team no longer significantly contributed to policing efforts. So that's the only reason provided, that it no longer significantly contributed to policing efforts. But there was, for me, that's the only reason that I know, and I think coming from intelligence and compartmentalization, that is all that I worked on the instruction.
Thank you, General.
Thank you, Chair.
General, maybe while you are on the letter, can you please read paragraph 5 into the record?
Okay. In compliance with the aforementioned directive of the Minister of Police, you are directed, which is it's an instruction with steps, if you look at what it means, to engage with the Divisional Commissioner of Crime Intelligence with a view to do a proper handing over and to follow all processes to conduct a handing over process. And this includes, but not limited to, a report of all cases in terms of their status, a case register wherein all the cases were recorded and the current status of court-going cases and cases under investigation. All cases or projects, documentation relevant to the Political Killings Task Team, the PKTT. These should include all evidentiary material, documents, electronic recordings, etc. It must be booked into the SAPS 13 or in possession of the team or stored in any storage facility. All human and physical resources allocated listed as well as a report on all financial expenditure for the duration of the operations of the task team. That ends paragraph 5, Commissioner.
General, that 5.3,
Yes.
is that in short, is that a reference to the dockets? Is this where the instruction
I think
says you must take over?
5.3, can I say actually all of them except for number 5.4, they refer to dockets.
Okay, all right.
Because General Kumalo had to provide me with the state of where those investigations were, which he did, I think, in the plan that we developed.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ms. Bowe, I would like to ask something about paragraph 6, but if you're still going to deal with the letter, if you were planning to deal with the letter in your own way, I would rather leave it to that point.
Commissioner Baloyi, I was going to proceed chronologically from where we are. So if we want to deal with paragraph,
I'll postpone, I'm happy to postpone it.
okay.
Okay, all right. All right, thank you. General, in that paragraph 6, which you haven't read,
Yes.
and I'll read it, it says, it is advised that the Divisional Commissioner, Detective and Forensic Services, that's you,
Yes.
okay, ensures that the case/investigations are taken care of to ensure that cases are not lost in court because of the deactivation and disbandment of the task team. I want to just understand how it works. You are at National. The PKTT dockets are
In
cases.
KwaZulu-Natal.
Yes.
Yes.
Ordinarily, how would it work? You are now being told you must ensure cases. What does it mean practically you would do? And does this reflect how, this kind of instruction, how ordinarily you would engage with provincial dockets, or was this something out of the norm, your involvement here, as in paragraph 6?
If I may clarify, Chairperson or Commissioner, and I will take you back to 2018 when the team was established. The team, though based in the province, was a national task team. That's why General Ramatswele was the first project manager, and General Makashalala. And General Makashalala moved to the Western Cape. General Ramatswele retired. General Kumalo was appointed when he got promoted to level 14 general or 2-star general. So he was running a national project. That's why even the budgeting would come from national. That's why even the reporting will include all of us. So in essence, what General Sibiya meant here was that I take over as the project manager. That's the understanding.
So you would take over from General Kumalo?
Yes.
That's what it would mean?
That's what actually he requested.
Okay.
And maybe just over and above what he wrote, it's also what he said, that General Kumalo was in crime intelligence, and therefore the investigations belong to detectives. Sure. Thank you, Chairperson.
And what's the significance of open quote advised, close quote, as opposed to, for example, instructed?
The instruction is already given. So he already instructed, and he gave probably a framework of how this instruction should be executed. Now he says, over and above what you're going to do, you must make sure that chain of custody, documentation related to the dockets, but also court processes don't get interfered with. Thank you.
Thank you.
General, just to take a step back, you were still in January.
Yes.
When you note at paragraph 16 that General Sibiya also followed up after your conversation with General Kumalo about whether or not you're going to get the dockets. Can you explain that interaction?
No, thank you very much, Commissioners. Still in January, and I must say, Commissioners, I don't remember the date. We were in his office. Normally, he would call meetings in the morning, and I think post that meeting, then he asked me if I had engaged with General Kumalo on the handover of the PKTT dockets. My response to him was that much as General Kumalo has spoken to me, I didn't take the matter forward because he at least had something in writing, I didn't. So I couldn't go ahead with the instruction, and therefore if he wanted me to proceed with that instruction, he had to reduce it into writing, or in writing.
In general, just to confirm, at this stage, you had not been furnished with the directive that the minister issued in December?
To date, I have actually not laid my hands on that directive.
Can I just go back a bit? So when you first encounter General Kumalo
Yes.
on your return to work in January, was that the first time that you became aware of this decision? Or someone spoke to you, maybe let me be more specific, that someone said anything to you about this decision of the disbandment?
Yeah. You know, I think after the July 6 press briefing by General Mkhwanazi, I realized that actually I've never even seen this writing. Not on social media, I don't think I came across it. Nobody even showed it to me. So when it happened, I think maybe it's because the critical 2 weeks I was not on duty. Maybe if I was, I would have been made aware either by General Sibiya himself, but no copy was ever shared. And it was actually for the first time that I heard from General Kumalo that the team was being disbanded. And again, it didn't provide reasons. Like I said, it was just, so for me, that was just, in jest actually, yes.
And before, we know the decision was communicated at least on the 31st of December. At any point before this discussion with General Kumalo, so I'm going back even to
Yes.
2024, had you ever become aware of an intention or a conversation to disband the PKTT?
No.
Yes.
No, Chair.
And if there was such consideration or even discussion, by virtue of your position, and please explain a bit if you're able to, would you have expected to have been part of that conversation?
I think in actual, I'm covering this later in the statement, but maybe let me say it was business unusual, where you just have a decision like that to say disband the structure. Normally, what would happen, we actually would be called into a meeting where all the teams, we've got a number of intervention teams throughout the country, and then we manage those through the structure called NCCF, and they then, General Musikidi is the chairperson, so they would come provide progress report, and we assess whether the intervention is working or not. And I think it is in that meeting where then, whether it's General Musikidi or the Divisional Commissioner can say, we then can start decommissioning the team. So not only myself, crime intelligence would be there, visible policing will be there, forensic services will be there, because we all deploy our capacities in support of the team.
Thank you.
And General, just to go back into, you note that you also attended some of the IMC meetings where feedback was given on the performance of the task team. What were your observations of the performance?
In the police, we have what we call a 5-pillar approach when we do interventions. That means mobilization of all your competencies, intelligence, you've got your proactive, number 3 is combat, so that will be your TRT, national intervention and task force if it's required, or POP. And we also have number 4, that's the detectives and the NPA within that pillar. Then number 5 will be communication. So General Kumalo went over and above that concept. He actually, in my assessment, established a one-stop shop where you get everything under one roof. So I had to deploy, for example, ballistics experts in that team. that were not sitting at forensic were sitting actually with the team. So that when there are firearms recovered or actually any material relating to a firearm, they would immediately process that. But also he had members who, like the DFOs, who will do inspections on firearms. I remember in one of the successes where a consignment of firearms was discovered from a dealer, and not all of them were registered, and some of them were linked to crime. So in my assessment, it was the best practice. I even asked him to say, Mbulaz, I'll share this operational approach in terms of now what they used as a framework to assess the progress. So it was working. And in the last IMC that I attended, 2022, if my memory serves me correct, because really I think some of the dates, as you grow older, you lose them. In that meeting, it was mentioned that the team should be strengthened and enhanced, particularly because of its effectiveness. And also it was said that the team should continue.
Thank you, General.
Can I just ask a follow-up question, Advocate?
Yes.
I'm going to take the General back. Commissioner Baloy asked you about whether in the normal course you should have been involved in the discussion leading to the disbandment. I want to focus on the after, because in paragraph 9.7 of your statement, you say, as part of your role, you are responsible for liaison and collaboration with other stakeholders, including the NPA. Now, there's this letter of February 2025. You are aware of the disbandment, but you say you were not given the disbandment directive. Would it have been your role then to notify the NPA in KZN that, listen, the PKTT has been disbanded, there's an instruction to take the dockets and reallocate them to detectives? Please note that the structure you had in place is no longer going to work. This is now the new structure that is going to be in place. Would that have been part of your responsibilities?
Let me start responding to you by saying that this was business as usual, because we do have monthly meetings, for example, with the DPP of KwaZulu-Natal, not only on PKTT, but also we've got extortions committees, we've got CITs. So in those meetings, if I co-chair, then it is my role to then say to the team, we have not to just the NPA, to everybody who's part of the team, to say, we have a new directive and this requires that maybe we review our way of moving forward. I don't think here, for me, things happen. For starters, General Mkhwanazi should have been the first person to be notified. People have got a misnomer in their minds.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Yes.
General Mkhwanazi should have been the first person to be
notified
about the disbandment.
Yes.
Okay, continue from there.
Yes, because, and I hear people throwing this, you are the custodian of the detectives or the dockets. The provincial commissioner is empowered by the Act to look at all issues crime in the province. When we work at national, we work in conjunction with the province. General Mkhwanazi, because he and General Kumalo were responsible, if you look at the minutes, they were the ones reporting on the progress of the PKTT, not the Divisional Commissioner, not General Kumalo in his capacity as the Divisional Commissioner for Crime Intelligence. So General Mkhwanazi would have been, as the chairperson for the province, engaged with the DPP as they do even currently. So to answer your question, it would not have been in my position to actually inform all the role players of the disbandment.
Don't forget your point about the misnomer. You had just started saying something about a misnomer.
Yes, and no, it's about, and I remember, I won't mention the general, who went on TV and said, the dockets are mine. And I think that's why we are here, where we are today. At national, we don't own the dockets. The dockets belongs to a province. And the provincial commissioner, if I were to use the last, the Kasi language, he's the last number of the province. I deal with General Mtombeni about dockets, General from Limpopo, General Khatev. I just don't decide. I engage with them because they are the people who are accountable for the stations and the workload of the stations.
In general, so now we are in February. You've already talked about.
Sorry, just to go back to, I think just to satisfy the chairperson. So this notion that you are the custodian of the dockets, maybe of the systems of managing the dockets, because in my role, I need to be able to provide the National Commissioner with the picture of the detective performance at national. For example, are we resolving on murder? Are we resolving on hijackings? I own the system. So I'm able to extract data that can give patterns. Let's say in Gauteng, we know that Gauteng actually holds the bulk of our crime. If I look at hijackings, if it's red, then I know that we need to intervene in Gauteng. So that is my role. Not that I can call dockets. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, General.
Not that it's not permitted, but actually it must be done in conjunction with the Provincial Commissioner.
So whoever may have told Mr. Mokgotsi, whoever the SAPS, may have told Mr. Brown Mokgotsi that the dockets are going to General Sibiya because they belong to him, would have misled him, if anyone told him that at all. They would not have been correct.
I am tempted to answer the Commissioner, but I think my response would be in this manner. You can read between the lines. I submit. Thank you.
I shall not ask you, what do you mean?
General, sorry, I need you to clarify something. As I understand what you're saying, there's a difference between overall responsibility for dockets and physical custody of an individual docket or a group of dockets. Can you just clarify that for me so that I understand the difference between the two?
The structure for detectives is as follows, okay? You have the DNC, you have the Divisional Commissioner, you have the component heads, but to the DNC or the DevCom, you've got a dotted line with the Deputy Provincial Commissioners. The DPCs are responsible, because they report to the PCs, for the dockets in the province. At national, if I were to, because I report on all dockets, even your high profile, at national, then that would be the Divisional Commissioner. But the PCs in the respective provinces have an authority based on the Constitution to actually deal with, even when you look at our directives, it talks about the station commander, not a component head at national, responsible for the safeguarding, safekeeping of dockets. So in that manner, I'm trying to say, at national, much as we do have that leeway because we're at national, but we can never do anything on dockets without involving the province. If there's a complaint that is submitted on an investigation that is not probably done properly, or the family is not getting joy, we get involved, and if they say they would like the docket to be moved to DPCI, that's my role. I engage the PC, we write, and we say this docket will then be moved to the DPCI after engaging either General Mboto or General Nkosi. I think for me that needs to be clarified, because this is where, again, Chair, the misnomer is happening, or actually is.
Thank you, General. We are now in February, and you've explained that you received the letter from General Sibiya, and you were also preparing for the ministers' meeting that was called in Cape Town. Before we talk more about sort of the interactions that you had in the execution of the letter, can you touch on sort of your relationship and the status of your relationship at the time with General Sibiya?
We had a very cordial relationship. Cordial in a sense that we have to work together, and I think we both realized that we have to work together. And I will not say it was one of the best relationships because it's a touch and go. Today, you could be on these good books. Tomorrow, for no reason, you could be in his bad books. So for me, it was a touch and go relationship, but we had to acknowledge that we had to work together. I already was aware that him and Kumalo were not doing well. Our program in totality was struggling in terms of performance. So as leadership, we had to be able to work together.
Thank you, General. You then left the meeting in Cape Town. Did you ever get feedback about...
Sorry, can I, before you discuss the Cape Town meeting, in paragraph 17, General,
Yes.
the very last sentence where you comment about this letter that we've just looked at, you say, according to the DNC's letter, this decision was based on an assessment which concluded that the PKTT no longer made a significant contribution to the broader policing efforts. Can I please ask you to comment on that, your view, whether you agreed with the view on your observation as divisional head about at that point, about the impact of the PKTT and whether, in your view, it had run its course?
I don't think any team that is relevant will ever run its course. And I don't believe that you have to change something that works because maybe it doesn't work for you. For me, the directive, I was not favored with that assessment that was conducted. And I was not aware if there was an assessment that was conducted. And I didn't ask. Maybe a shortfall on my side, but I took it that maybe definitely they did a study. If Kumalo is saying he's bringing the dockets, maybe there was something in writing that said, indeed, maybe the workload has reduced, or maybe there was something that said the team actually could be, either maybe the detectives must go back to the detectives and all the combat members must go back to their environments. So my understanding of this was based on what I saw. However, knowing what I know, remember this team has been running over a period of time. So I was not sure whether really there was a meeting, because I've missed a number of meetings, like, for example, the 2023 IMC I didn't sit. So I was not sure whether indeed there was a meeting that took place and also that then the team must be disbanded. Yeah.
And as at the time of this meeting in February with the minister, and as at today,
Yes.
did you ever become aware of an assessment that was done about the effectiveness of the PKTT?
No. And I think I do cover it also towards the end of my submission. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, General. When you returned from the Cape Town meeting, did anybody give you a briefing about what would have been the outcome, particularly in relation to this instruction?
I think upon my return, Kumalo and I, we arranged a meeting where we then had to sit to say, how do we implement this directive or instruction by the DNC? But there was no other meeting, whether called by the National Commissioner or the Minister, in relation to this. So we actually had to work with what we had before us.
And you say in that paragraph 18, I think if I understood you earlier, where you speak about this meeting, earlier your evidence, I think you said this was your first orientation. It was an orientation meeting of the minister and you were presenting to him for the first time. Did
Yes.
I hear you correctly?
Not necessarily for the first time, because the minister, I think, met different divisions for the better part of his last 4 months of the year. And I know there was a meeting in November. I was not part of it. So there were he would call it division and say, visible policing, come and present to me. So we were not called as yet. So in this meeting, we were called, but not only the detectives, it was all the divisions, and I think on the agenda, my part, if I remember very well, it was about capacitating the detectives. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I took it that, because the minister was still trying to understand the functioning of the SAPS.
Thank you.
General, on that point, just to make sure, in the 5 months in the preceding year, 2024, your division wasn't called to provide a briefing or orientation?
Where we were only as a division, no. But there was a meeting with the minister where he actually called us to come up with a plan on how to capacitate the detectives. Hence, on the 6th, we had to then present that plan to him.
But a general briefing hadn't taken place on the division as a whole?
No, not that I remember. And I'm saying this bearing in mind that my position also requires me to travel. It could have taken place in my absence, but where I was, no.
Thank you, General. And
Sorry, Ms. Bowe, I'm very sorry. I'll take you back 1 or 2 steps, General. Okay. You say that on your assessment, the minister was still orientating himself.
Yes.
Through calling these various meetings with this division, that division, and so on. Oh. So it's a firm view that he was at a stage where he was still orientating himself.
It is my view,
yes,
and it will remain, because I think I've worked in state security. Our strength at the time was 3,000. I worked at NICOC. Our strength, I'm not sure, but we were not probably 2,000 or even less. In the police, when I arrived, the police were almost 200,000. That's like a cumbersome structure. I don't think any police minister will leave having said, I understood the police correctly. I am managing so many components. Sometimes when something comes, I'm like, but I was not aware, because it's impossible. I mean, it's a task that you really need a very strong management information team to always be on top of things. So the minister, I think, based on his duration of being with us, definitely he was still in the orientation phase.
I'm asking you this in the context of the minister's decision to disband the PKTT, which I understand to be a decision that had far-reaching implications. Mm-hmm. So I find it very odd that at a stage when the minister was still orientating himself, he could have taken such a decision. Do you wish to comment on that?
My comment is, I think your assessment is correct, but also to further add, I don't think maybe he anticipated that actually this had far-reaching implications. I'm not sure whether it was a lapse in judgment from his advisors or where it came from. But I don't think it was properly applied, and that's why today we are sitting here.
You refer to advisors. Are you aware of any?
I know that the minister has...
On this decision, advisors with regard...
I'm talking about an office, because the minister definitely, having been new or let me say even where he was, there should be people who have got the know-how, who are able to at least orientate and advise him.
Thank you, General.
Thank you, Commissioner.
General, you say that the far-reaching consequences. Mm-hmm. I know somewhere in your statement you speak about the effect on cases that we're running. Can you just maybe now that you've mentioned the far-reaching consequences that you think the minister may not have been aware of, what, for example, maybe not for example, just speak to us about that. What are the far-reaching consequences you're referring to?
I'll start with, for me, the most strategic one. The police is in a pariah state as we speak because of that decision. Meaning that General Masemula and I spoke day before yesterday. He was looking for me and I was in consultation. Then he says to me, you, Musikidi and Dimpane are all in commissions. And I said, yes, General, it's because of what we did. it impacts on our day-to-day functioning, but also on relationships. And I'll start with General Kumalo, who actually had a very good relationship with the detectives. In honest reflection, now he actually has to question who he talks to, and at times he would want to talk through me. That's far-reaching because operationally, when we talk about your intelligence-led investigations, General Kumalo is a pivotal role in us succeeding as detectives. So I'm just sharing with you a few.
General, you are now back. It's after the meeting that took place in Cape Town, and you're with General Kumalo to put together a plan to implement the 2 directives or instructions that you each have received. And you talk there about developing a plan. What plan was developed, and what considerations were you keeping in mind in developing this plan?
Okay. What we had in front of us was just an instruction with a framework of what needed to be done. And I think for those who are au fait with the art of war, you need a roadmap in terms of where you are going. And again, we realized that because General Sibiya gave me 7 days on the letter to be able to do all of the actions that he prescribed. And I think if now on hindsight that actually there was immediacy to the disbandment. So we had to devise means to say, in line with the winding down approach, how then do we wind down to the disbandment? And I think we had then to develop a plan that spoke to key components of what could be elements of the winding down.
General, you speak about the winding down approach, and the directive speaks about immediate disbandment. Where does the winding down approach come from?
In one of the things that I mentioned, I think at the end of my statement, is that we also need to orientate the political principles on how we work. There's no immediacy to ending a project. If you say it ends now, it means I'm saying to the colleagues, where you are, just drop everything and go back to your respective environments. We are talking here cases that involve victims of crime, where people's lives were lost. So we need to be considerate and thoughtful. Maybe it's just words in writing or it's English, but in terms of how we implement, we had to be cognizant of what becomes the reality towards winding down.
And so, using those considerations, you developed a plan that we've attached as HKS2. Can you briefly summarize the key aspects of the plan? Commissioners,
if I may.
Apologies, General, it is on page 3 of the annexures bundle.
Okay. But can I use paragraph 21 because it's almost the same, and then I'll go to the action plan on the annexures. Is that fine?
Yes, General.
Okay. The key components of the plan focused on the following. There were 125 dockets under investigation, and 10 dockets which were submitted to the NPA for decision, and all of those had to be transferred. And I must, maybe before I get to this one, so General Sibiya said all the workload must come to head office. And my argument always is that I am not a police station. And at head office, we do carry dockets within General Mutsipe's environment, in Ninu, and I think to a larger extent in organized crime under General Shibiri's environment. But we are not designed to actually carry dockets. And I'm saying I'm not a police station. General Kumalo Mbuso will tell you, I always say, don't bring dockets to me, I'm not a police station. Because the dockets actually are a key commodity of the police station. So in the discussions, even with the ministers' meeting, I think at the end of the day, it was agreed that those dockets must be removed from the PKTT as a team to the detectives within serious and violent crimes, and that will be a murder and robbery unit. So this then talks to that approach to say that dockets will be removed from the PKTT, but they must immediately go back to their province of origin, that is KwaZulu-Natal, and I think in relation to the 3 other dockets, that would have been Eastern Cape. The second,
So each station has got its own murder and robbery. Is that how it works?
murder and robbery is a provincial competency because it's a specialized unit. But you will have general detectives at a station working on your normal murder cases. So murder and robbery would take such cases that are specialized or actually that garner national interest. So those will be based at a provincial level, not at a station.
So where an instruction is the dockets must go back to, and the members of the PKTT must go back to their stations, what does that mean for what you've just explained?
It would mean that, let's start with the members. If members, because we call members on a call-up instruction to join a team. So if that team is decommissioned, they must go back, let me say, to their business unit of origin. It could be a station, it could be at province, it could be at district. In terms of the dockets, I think the PC and the DPC will use their discretion to say this docket should stay with organized crime, with serious violent crimes, or it must go back to the station. Yes.
So where you had, say, investigating officers
Yes.
in these dockets, and that investigating officer now goes back to their station,
Yes.
because that's the instruction. It means those dockets, if they are going to serious and violent crime, I think murder and serious, I think
Yes.
the
Yeah,
name
murder
is
and
the name.
robbery, yes, yeah.
If they go, the dockets go there, it means then there has to be a new investigating officer, unless a decision is made by the provincial authorities
Yes.
to bring that person in.
If I respond to you based on the instruction, it meant that those dockets will be removed from those investigating officers and they will be assigned to new investigating officers and those under investigation. Thank you, Commissioner.
General, you were telling us about the key elements
Oh,
of
yes.
the plan.
Yeah, so the second part was that all new reported cases on political killings will be referred to the serious and violent crime investigation units and specifically murder and robbery units in KwaZulu-Natal. In the workload that we also had to look at, and I think this also talks to the letter of the 22nd of April, 297 finalized dockets, 57 withdrawn dockets, and 9 unfounded dockets were to be returned to their stations of origin for archiving, because all of these actually were closed dockets. 114 dockets on the court roll were to remain with the PKTT until they were finalized. Again, if you read this, in relation to what General Sibiya said, that actually even the court-going dockets must be taken away from the team and they must be given to the detectives.
And General, why was it your and General Kumalo's approach to have the 114 dockets remain with the PKTT? Why was that necessary?
It was not only mine and General Kumalo's view as well. I think National Commission General Musigiri, in the meeting that took place, I think, on the 6th of March with the minister, they supported this approach. And I want to use an example in responding to this question. So a docket already is placed on the court roll. Let's say it's a rape case. The investigator has been able to establish a rapport with the victim, the victim's family, the witnesses, and they have an understanding, cooperation, and it helps in expediting the investigation. Now, if you bring in a new person, I think in the GBV environment, we call it secondary victimization, because now you have to make this person to relive the trauma. And it applies to also your serious violent crimes. If somebody's family, maybe it's a murder victim, now you must deal with a different person. And I'll give an example. As I said, I've got a mother whose child was kidnapped and disappeared. And she came to a point where she said, I'm not talking to anybody else. Because every time you bring somebody new, I need to start from scratch. And again, I need to relive the trauma of being a year without my son. So again, it's about taking cognizance of the impact of our decision. When a docket is on the court roll, again, there's a prosecutor, there's a relationship between the IO and the... So you cannot, for me, disrupt that value chain. Because, like I said, it can have far-reaching implications, even on the prospects of success for that particular case.
And in addition to those observations, which are quite important, there's also the question of the detective having to study the content of the docket.
Yeah.
And also get to know what still needs to be done, whereas the original investigator was already flowing or running, as it were. So there will be delays. And that in addition to the observations that you have made, which are quite important.
Thank you, Commissioner. And actually, you are now jacking my brain to think even further, particularly on the PKTT. These members are vested in what they do. And I mean, it happens everywhere in many environments, but because it's what we see, they actually make sure that whatever they start, they will run until they finish. And please don't ask me for statistics because I won't be able to give you. I'm just giving you a reflection of what I know and what I've seen. You know, the docket might be given to somebody not with the same zeal, not with the same energy and commitment. So in that sense, again, the family already, if you look at the police, if you look at the perception index of the police, I don't think we're doing so well. So these also further add insult to injury for the police.
On the zeal and good performance and so on, I'm sure General Motsepe, I hope it was her, would not agree with you.
Yeah.
Basically, I understood her to be saying there's nothing special with the PKTT. The rest of the detectives in the country perform as well as the PKTT is said to be performing.
Can I add, Commissioner, that actually there's nothing special about any of the units in the police because we are actually called to do what we do. It's the energy we bring that makes a difference. It's the image we portray to the communities that brings hope that actually my case is in the good hands. So it's a relative response, and I think to be safe, I'll leave it at that, Commissioner.
Perhaps now that we are talking about that and the performance, earlier you said because this was a multidisciplinary approach, to which you said General Kumalo added something. I will not go to what it is that he added. General Motsepe said there was nothing special with it because all of the facilities that you say and other witnesses have said were available to the PKTT are available to all generals, to all detectives countrywide. And when we raised with her the fact that, but look, there are dedicated, for example, ballistics experts within the PKTT who are able to expedite the testing process. And she was dismissive even of that, and she said even detectives in any other cases within the country are able to expedite those matters that they feel warrant to be expedited. So basically saying, there's nothing special with having this multidisciplinary arrangement. What's your comment on that?
Yeah, now I feel I'm on the spot. Change is good. And for me, if anyone brings diversification in terms of how we can do things, I think it should be welcomed. Detectives at a police station and detectives in specialized units sometimes struggle for resources, for example, cars and phones, and and probably they would only look at what they have. So if someone who's a leader decides that I want to actually be the game changer in investigations, and therefore I'm applying this approach, I think as the head of detectives, I welcome it. In actual fact, General Nkomo, who was our previous DEFCOM, General Musikidi, we tried to actually establish what we call a just joint investigation support team at National, to have all those competencies that in case there's a priority crime that takes place, immediately you can mobilize those members and deploy them. So for me, it's about diversification and finding creative ways to expedite as well as do better in investigations.
Just to make sure I understand you, so are you saying this multidisciplinary approach was more effective than, let me loosely call it, ordinary or the usual approach to detecting crime?
I will respond again, Chairperson, by providing a live example. We're busy now with the plan on gang violence in the Western Cape. Whereas you would have some of these dockets being run as individual dockets, only with the detective who still has to go and ask for assistance from the NPA, some go to forensic. Now we are bringing, again, using the same method, all those under one roof, under General Maqashalala, who's a detective.
And
the NPA is sitting, and because it is an effective methodology, now we even broaden it to include one of the critical elements in investigations, asset forfeiture, because it takes time to actually get that docket ready for court. And so we're also looking at other means of hitting the criminals, just over and above criminal investigation.
Thank you, General.
Thank you, Chair.
General, and you say in paragraph 19 that in the course of establishing or developing this plan, what was clear to you was that it wouldn't be possible to implement within 7 days.
It was not possible.
And is that then what informed this phased approach that you outline in the plan?
Yes.
And in general, you speak about a presentation that was then made before the 6 March meeting. Can you talk to us about that? That's at paragraph 20.
That presentation, I think, Chairperson, it's on the bundle. So let me just check. It's annexure. It's annexure. You can. Okay, it's annexure 8KS 2, no?
3.
3. Okay, HKS 3. No, 3. Oh, yeah. No. Here it is. It basically was providing the minister with a proposal for his approval of ensuring that this is a process-driven disbandment. And General Kumalo, because he carried the caseload, prepared all the cases and their status as outlined in General Sibiya's letter to me and to him. But what is critical, I think it is the page 10 of that plan. So over and above the proposal, an action plan was developed, which we call the implementation plan, which then sets out actions that were supposed to be undertaken in the winding down and provided the due dates, and people responsible. But I must add that of all the actions, the most important action for the meeting was action number 3, that was the handing over of the dockets under investigation to the DevCom, detective and forensic services.
And General, just so that we can understand, when the plan says hand over the dockets under investigation, practically what were you envisaging?
Because already we had, through General Kumalo, done an assessment of how many dockets were there. It meant exactly that. So General Kumalo was supposed to physically hand over the dockets to the detectives under my command as set by the plan. That's what it meant.
To the detectives, not to you?
I actually see this as a position because in my absence, General Mokhale became the acting DevCom. So the dockets returned. It was not me, it was General Mokhale. So it's returned to the position of the Divisional Commissioner, Detective and Forensic Services. So that would be a position that I occupy. So directly, that is me.
Okay, General, and so this plan was then presented at the meeting on the 6th of March.
Yes.
Can you tell us about that meeting?
Yeah. In that meeting, as General Kumalo was presenting, as I said earlier, General Sibiya, I think the minister, were of the view that even the dockets on the court roll should be handed over. But after discussions, let me also hasten to add that, commissioners, part of the plan included the reduced number of members who would now remain in the PKTT in view of the fact that only the 114 dockets will remain. So which means you don't need the whole lot. I think there were over 90, if I'm not mistaken. The number was reduced to 68. So that was one of the other key critical components of the plan. So in that meeting, I think the argument that the 114 dockets must remain with the PKTT won.
And General, just so that we place it on record, could you look at paragraph 23
Okay.
and 24? Your language there is much stronger. Do you care to comment on those two paragraphs?
Yeah. I'm reflecting here on General Sibiya's thinking with the disbandment, that actually General Kumalo was not a detective and therefore couldn't be responsible for investigations. So his argument in that meeting, for me, resonated with the letter that he wrote to say that the handover should be complete so that no dockets would be under General Kumalo's leadership, including those court-going dockets. So whatever elements that he was arguing about in that meeting, or arguing on, or arguing for, it was actually all aimed at ensuring that there's a complete handover to the detectives on the dockets.
You then say that General Sibiya's sentiments were also shared by the Minister and the Chief of Staff.
As I said earlier, yes.
And the approach to retain the dockets was supported by the National Commissioner and General Musidi.
Yes.
And you say, ultimately, what then became of the plan? What was the resolution?
The plan was approved in principle, I think, with those amendments to say that the 114 dockets will remain with the PKTT, but also that now these 114 dockets with those assigned investigators, as and when each case gets concluded, those detectives will then have to go back to their station of origin or business unit of origin, but also the combat members as well who were protecting them will also have to withdraw and go back to their business unit of origin.
That, of course, would not apply to detectives who had more than one docket in court. So if you finalize this one,
And the other
and
one
you
is
have
still,
another,
it
so
doesn't
you-
affect you.
you-
Yes.
yeah.
So it means that it meant your workload had to be concluded. So if you had 3 dockets, you had to conclude all of them.
General, when you say that the plan was approved in principle, does that include, if you look at the action plan, if you go back and then you've got the item 2, no, item 3, approval of the new call-up instruction and
Yes.
financial authority for 2025-26.
26, yes.
It included that as well.
It is
in
included, and I
principle.
think that was specifically for those members who would have remained, because their term, I think, was coming to an end. So there had to be a new call-up instruction for them to be able to continue with their responsibilities.
Okay. So in your understanding of how that meeting concludes in principle, adopting the plan, your understanding is that even though, and please correct me if I'm wrong,
Yeah.
I may be posing it not correctly, that even though the minister's letter or instruction says immediate
Immediately, yeah.
disbandment, in principle, the minister accepted that there would be that call-up instruction
Yes.
and a budget allocation for
Yes.
the period. You would accept that?
I would agree with that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
And General, just to put this to you, Generals Masemola and Kumalo testified that there wasn't actual approval. What's your comment to that?
And I listened to both of them, and also I think there was an engagement to understand what does it mean. In the second meeting of the 27th, progress was supposed to be reported of the deliberations of the 6th, which means it was the approval plus the amendments. How far have you gone? And the information note was supposed to be written for approval, and that never happened. So for me, that was not the plan, but the information note. That's my understanding.
Thank you, General. And then,
Sorry, I'm not sure I understand. Are you saying if they testified or we understood their evidence to be that there was no approval of a plan,
Yes.
they are incorrect in that, or we are mistaken? Which one is it?
For me,
Because-
it's a perspective. Hence, I'm clarifying probably what it could mean for them. Because in principle, that plan, hence Kumalo and I were able to even plan after that because there was a principled approval.
Okay.
But in the police, as I think I said to the evidence leader, for something to be complete for budgeting, you need that information note.
I see. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner.
and so, General, after this meeting, you then speak of a call that General Kumalo reports to you from General Mutsebe. Can you explain what happened there?
Yeah. It was during March and after the meeting of the 6th. And again, Commissioners, please pardon me because I don't remember all the dates and it's not deliberate or at misleading the Commission.
You already attributed it to age, General.
Thank you for acknowledging that, Commissioner. Okay, General Kumalo gave me a disturbing call and said that he received a call from General Mutsebe, who asked, who informed him that she was coming to collect the PKTT dockets. So immediately he ended the call and called me and asked, but why would Mutsebe call him for the docket? So I said, no, General, don't worry, I will address it. And I called General Mutsebe and I said to her, can you please cease communicating with Kumalo on the matter because he and I were seized with the matter. Now, what I didn't do, and I admitted to this commission, I didn't ask her where did she get it from. But I had an assumption because all the component heads, they have the direct access to the DNC. that's no surprise. You go in and you find them sitting. So my thinking was maybe General Sibiya kept on reminding. And I said to the evidence leader, if maybe you need people to actually collaborate or corroborate that, it's fine. They are there. He would ask, how far are you? You are not moving. You are not taking the instruction of the minister. So I felt that maybe he got impatient with me. He got impatient with me because he assumed that maybe I was actually, because Kumalo, we called, he knew that maybe because of the relationship we have, therefore I'm not willing to execute. So my thinking was maybe Mutsipe got an instruction from him, and I say, underlining, it's an assumption, it's not fact. But also why I would think like that, and I think evidence leader asked me earlier as to why maybe all the relationship between me and General Sibiya. In February, after the letter was received, after I came back from the bereavement of a family member, the National Commissioner got a complaint of an elderly person who actually owns properties in Johannesburg. And that elderly person was extorted, his buildings were hijacked, and he was assaulted, his house was broken, and he was staying alone. He's got no family. The elderly person complained to the police, and actually, at some point, even some of the police took advantage of him. So Natcom got that complaint, and he asked me to address it. Normally, I wouldn't undertake that task of dealing with complaints directly. I gave it to General Shibiri. But at the time, General Shibiri, I think either him or his wife was not well, I can't remember. But the complainant kept on reminding Natcom to say, but nobody called me. This elderly guy actually had to flee Gauteng and was in Cape Town. So Natcom reminded me that there's this matter. So I then said to him, can I go now to go and see the complainant? Which he said yes. General Sibiya has to sign my itinerary because he's my supervisor. And he had a serious problem. And I think I did submit the WhatsApp messages. Even after saying to him, Mpati, I would never, he believed that I was working against him. He believed that my trip to Cape Town was anomalous. I remember I even wrote in Zulu, Mpati, you know? And it got to a point where I said, you know what, I do what you want. You can deploy me if you want, redeploy me if you want. Because I felt, because he said in the end, I know now. What does that mean? It means, good, I know that actually you are working against me. So I said, after this complaint, I'm gone. So in that sense, I thought maybe he felt that maybe he was unsure where I stand. I don't know why, but that's what I want to present to the Commission.
Chair.
Let us adjourn and resume at 11:20. Let's perhaps, to be fair, let's wait maybe for 1 minute or so, because some of the people who are not back because I asked them to join me at a very brief meeting. And I rushed back and left them behind. Apologies for this, General. I I hope everybody's back in. We waited. Thank you, Ms. Bowe.
Thank you, Chairperson. General, if we can go back to paragraph 27, where you dealt with the call that you received from General Kumalo regarding General Motsepe's call to him. What I wanted to follow up on was whether this was protocol for General Motsepe to call General Kumalo in this manner or on this issue.
Thank you, Commissioners. And Commissioner, I actually took the cue from you, and I'm using this line every day. Babaribar. I want to say that this call, General Kumalo can attest to, because we both found it odd. So it's not just me who's saying it. I'm not sure if it was in his statement, but I can submit that it is actually factual. And moving further, so in the police, there are not necessarily any prescriptions on who or you can talk to. The National Commissioner can call me directly, the Minister can call me directly, General Motsepe can be called by General Sibiya, General Motsepe can call General Kumalo. So there's nothing anomalous about that. However, on this specific matter, because it was sensitive, there was no designation for her until I called her on the 27th. So that's what I can submit.
But on who can call whom,
Yes.
you mentioned people who would be senior calling those that are junior. Does it work the other way as well?
It works. Maybe before, I'm not sure, I was not there. Like I said, I'm a lateral infusion. A constable can call me and complain about a matter, and I know that before it wasn't allowed, you know. So there are no written down rules in terms of who can call who. And I don't think also it's regulated. But I think there's an understanding that there are people who still say, but I can't call. I would ask, but why didn't you call me, General? But I can't jump my component head and talk to you. So it happens.
So,
self-regulation.
In my early professional years, I was a civil servant, and there was something called channels of communication.
Yes.
You were bound to talk only to the person immediately above you, and it would be that person that then forwards whatever it is you are raising. But from what you are saying, it seems that no longer applies.
No, thank you, Chair.
Perhaps just to place it or to understand the context, in paragraph 9.3 of the statement, you speak of the various specialized components that you have oversight over.
Yes.
Does General Motsepe, Major General Motsepe, fall under any one of those, and if so, which one?
Yes, Commissioners, she does, and she's the head of serious and violent crime investigations.
Okay, so she reports to you directly?
Directly, yes.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
And on this kind of project where you've already been tasked by General Sibiya to be responsible for it and engage with General Kumalo, is your evidence that you would have expected she would take instructions from you about this? Is that
In
what you're
actual
saying?
fact, she was supposed to wait for instructions from me.
Yes.
Because I was given the mandate to actually do the handing over.
Okay, thank you.
And then, General, before we return to your statement, before we adjourn for the tea break, you were recounting an incident of where the National Commissioner had instructed you to attend to a matter in Cape Town, and you referred to WhatsApp conversations between yourself and General Sibiya. Can I ask you to go to HKS 7? That's on page 23 of the annexures bundle.
Oh, yes, I am there. Yes.
Can you confirm that this is the conversation you were referencing in your testimony?
Yes, it is.
And then if we could then go to the actual conversation.
Okay. Can I read into the record?
Yes, please.
Yeah, it was after the National Commissioner asked me to go to Cape Town to intervene in that matter of an elderly victim. General Sibiya says to me, I'm advised that I should just keep quiet and let you go. You are free to go to Cape Town. That was in the evening, and in the morning I responded humbly and I said, good morning, Pat, my DNC. I am not perfect. God, this one thing I know. Ngiyakuhlonipha, ngeke ngenza into ongayithandi. Ngathembisa ukuthi I'll always support and work with you. Ngowami umlomo, lokho zange ngikwashintsha, futhi ngeke kwashintsha nanini. Angisona isitha, futhi ngeke ngaba yiso. Ngicela kungamosheki ubudlelwane bethu emsebenzini, ngiyabonga. Then I tried to call him and he didn't answer.
General, can you translate that for us who are not fluent in isiZulu?
I was saying that as a member working under his command, I'll always respect him. And I'm not here to do anything that could actually be contrary to what I'm supposed to do. But also he mustn't view me as an enemy because I'm not. And probably that I was asking that, can we have a cordial working relationship? I'm not sure if it sums it up, Commissioner. Kunzima translate isiZulu to English.
Thank you, General. And then can you continue on the next page?
So on the next page, the General says, you know why you went to Cape Town and what you are busy with. And you also know why the National Commissioner sent you and not say anything to me about you having to go to Cape Town. I personally know and trust that Makasala can deal with that thing. At least now I know. Then I attached the WhatsApp messages between me and the National Commissioner as proof that actually this is what I was going to do in Cape Town.
You can skip the screenshots to then go to your message.
So in the end, because I could see that he's not backing down and he's put me in a box, I'm not sure which box. I said, I'll leave it at this. I didn't invite this to me. I was acting on instructions and I forwarded this to General Shibiri, who couldn't deal with it because of the wife. And they kept on calling Natcom to say that we, as the detectives, are not responding. I'll give you both the complainant's numbers and the reporter. I'll also write an info note to Natcom through you to be recused from the matter, as Shibiri, who was on conference call with me, with the complainant, will take over. The DNC can ask for my redeployment, as this is too much for me and I won't be entangled on anything I don't know. I'm here to work and nothing else.
Thank you, General. And how does this then affect your relationship, particularly during the course of this disbandment and dockets issue?
Yeah, as I said that with General Sibiya, it's a touch and go. We have to work, and I always say to Natcom, National Commissioner, that I want to be the bigger person, even where challenges can be noted, because at times it could really be extreme, and I think we'll talk to that. So because we had to work together, I became the bigger person. Moving forward, you could see that the messages between him and I on work were quite cordial.
General, and I apologize if you have already dealt with this or explained it. That first message at page 23 from General Sibiya, or that he says from General Sibiya, it doesn't have a context when you look at this, these screenshots.
Okay.
And your response, and maybe something in the voice call was said that makes him respond to you, say, I am advised that I should just keep quiet.
And let you go.
So maybe if you could just give us a context to how do things get, what has been said.
Yes.
That brings us to what the two of you now engaging in this way.
After General Sibiya denied that I should go to Cape Town, I had to call Natcom, who tasked me to say, General Sibiya does not want me to leave for Cape Town, so I sought his intervention. And I believe that then he called General Sibiya, and I don't think he took it kindly.
Okay, all right. So you applied for his approval because you said as the
That's
as your
protocol,
superior.
yes.
Yeah.
National Commissioner does not approve my travels, but the DNC does.
Okay, and then he declined it.
Yes.
And then he wrote this to you. after
He
that.
wrote only after Natcom intervened to say that I'm advised that I should let you go.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Then, General, let's go back to your statement at paragraph 28. There you were dealing with General Motsipe's testimony that you had informed her sometime in March informally about the disbandments and the dockets. Can you explain what happened there? Or rather, your view on her testimony?
General Motsipe called me on the 23rd of October, 2025. And in the call, she wanted me to confirm that I actually had informed her that the PKTT was going to be disbanded. And she reminded me that this happened at Kgotshimampuru. And I remember telling her that, General, this is a mistake, because I even checked my call logs on the day to say the only call I have to you, 27 March 2025, and this is when I requested you to accompany me. And when she couldn't get joy with me, I traveled to Abu Dhabi for the week I think I was supposed to appear, and I asked that I be given time because I had to travel for work purposes. On the 13th of November, she then called my support staff, where she inquired if they remember. But the scenery has changed. To me, she said Kgotshimampuru, but to my members, she said it was at Vardays, where the National Commissioner and the DNCs are sitting. And then I think my PA didn't respond to the call.
On your understanding, what was so significant with the timing of when this happened or when this first happened?
To be honest with you, I suspected that it had to do with the commission, because she actually said that the commission was asking her questions about how she came to know about the disbandment, you know. And I remember I also told National Commissioner to say, actually, National Commissioner, General Motsipe called me and I find it odd. And I said to him, luckily I've got my call logs, so I can actually locate where on the day I made this call. But also, maybe to just give further information, and I did give another message to the evidence leader. On the 9th of July, General Motsipe is the one actually who forwarded to me the letter of the minister. And my other question was, if then I already knew and I told her, why then would she be giving me this letter only in July? So for me, I am here to say that's my analysis, and I cannot take it beyond that. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, General. So your testimony is that she's incorrect that you called her in March,
Affirmative.
in early March.
Affirmative.
General, then you proceed in your statement at paragraph 30 to deal specifically with the events of March, and you start there with the calls or nudges or inquiries that you were getting from General Sibiya. Can you explain what was happening around that time?
Okay. Actually, since that letter was disseminated to me for implementation commissioners, General Sibiya did make numerous calls, but also if we met either for meetings, he would always remind that you guys need to conclude the handover process. And the catchphrase would be that I am not following instructions. One of the issues he would say is that I was like Kumalo. I was now not listening to him.
Um,
I think I'm saying this and General Kumalo said it as well, to say also he got calls, to say this was not business usual, there was just too much pressure.
You say, General, in the statement that he's, in addition to saying you are now like Kumalo, he said you are dragging, I was dragging my feet in implementing the minister's instruction.
Yes.
You confirm, is
Yes.
Okay.
And General, you explained that this was not the case. Can you explain what was happening that perhaps slowed down the progress of the handover being completed?
In my earlier statement, I think I dealt with the issue of challenges that actually led to me and General Kumalo not meeting, but I think also I cited the some nature of my portfolio. I was not vested in the PKTT. I also had other issues to deal with. I think the example being one of those that raised by the Commissioner today, dealing with FSL matters, would be one of my critical areas.
And so there wasn't a deliberate attempt to frustrate, as it were, the process?
No.
But is it fair to say you did not comply with General Sibiya's 7-day directive?
It's
Because
fair.
he had given you 7 days.
Yes, and already we were in March.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Commissioner.
In fairness, at this stage, you had presented the plan, which was after General Sibiya's letter, and so he would have been in the in-principle meeting where the plan was approved? Sorry, the meeting.
He was in all meetings.
Okay.
Yes.
And so the reminders would have been in terms of the plan?
For me,
Or
it's
were
both.
they?
Because remember, the plan is implementing his instruction. So you cannot separate the two. For me, they are juxtaposed. Or actually, they are in sync.
All right.
Thank you.
General, you then speak about the meeting that takes place on the 27th of March. And that would have been a follow-up meeting. Can you explain what happened at that meeting?
I think the meeting was set to take place for a specific time. I can't remember the times. I think the Commissioner said age is a factor, so I understand. And in this meeting...
You said so, General. I was only quoting you.
In that meeting, General Kumalo and I were supposed to present progress report emanating from the meeting of the 6th of March. I think the opening slide spoke about 121 dockets. And the minister remembers 125 dockets. And General Kumalo tried to explain that actually during the process, as we were planning to hand over, 4 of those dockets were now trial ready and were placed on the court roll. So that's why the number was reduced from 125 to 121. The other point of contention was that since we met in Cape Town, there's been no handover of the dockets. The dockets were still with the PKTT, and I still sat with no dockets. So both him and I were chastised to say that we are not taking the instructions seriously. And I remember, Commissioner, that I raised my hand to say, Minister, I'm ready. And I'm saying this because, for lack of a better word, I came into the process with honesty. I didn't have information on who was doing nefarious issues so for me it was just implementing the instruction. So I said to him, no, but I'm not against taking the dockets, And I think for General Kumalo, it actually, because he was singled out to say that he's actually unwilling. But Minister also made that comment to say, this is a political decision and the President is in the know of that decision. That's what he said in that particular meeting. So then he ended that meeting by saying that he won't engage with us anymore, and he'll only engage with the National Commissioner moving forward. But both Kumalo and I remember Mina was very upset, and I said to National Commissioner, but why should I be the one to take the dockets? And he said to me, because you're the head of detectives. And yeah, I think after the meeting, General Sibiya came to say, you see now what we have done. The minister is not happy with you guys. Yeah, now I'm saying go and conclude the handover process. So it was on that day that I then called General Motsepe to say tomorrow she must accompany me, after engaging with General Kumalo to say, can we finalize this? But I must say also, because he was the most hit, and I think he also wanted this to finish. He really was not happy.
And so because of the pressure and this meeting, you decided to do the handover the very next day?
The very next day. The dockets were already here. General Kumalo brought the dockets to Pretoria. And I will try and clarify, not reading his mind. Because of the pressure, this was not business usual. There was no time to sit and say, okay, maybe we can go to Ntuzuma. I didn't know where the dockets were, for example. I'm just giving an example that maybe, So it was at that moment to say, let's just do the handing over of the dockets.
And so, because of the circumstances, the dockets were now in
Pretoria, in his office, because the following day when we went, it was after I called General Motsepe, she informed me that she was not available, and then Brigadier Hopoditata will stand in for her. I didn't call Hopoditata on the day, and I'll clarify why. In the meeting that we had on the 6th of March, the Sunday City Press carried an article on the details of the meeting we had. So we were treating this as a sensitive matter, and therefore the briefings would not have been, no, let's bring the people before. Actually, we felt we were doing things as we were moving to actually avert any compromise from the process.
Thank you, General. And so on the 28th with Brigadier Hopoditata, you oversaw the handing over process. Can you explain what the process entailed?
Okay.
General, maybe before you do that.
Yes.
Earlier on in paragraph 30, where you speak about General Sibiya would make inquiries with you about the instruction that he has given you, which is to the handover of dockets. I think you readily, or maybe too quickly, conceded to the evidence leader that his inquiries would have been in accordance or consistent with the plan. But I'm not sure about that, because when you look at the plan itself at page 10, it says the handover would have happened on the 26th of March. That's the due date. Is that a mistake? And when I ask you that question,
yes.
If you look again at paragraph 31, the very first line, you say the handover process was to be completed on the at the statement, para 31 of your statement. So you've got the plan at page 10, and then you've got in your statement at paragraph 31 where you say handover was to happen on the 17th of March. Okay. Is there a mistake somewhere?
Yes, there is. I think there are two plans. There's a plan for the 6th that's marked the 17th of March was supposed to be the handover. I'm sure evidence leader, if maybe in interpreting the documents, we mix them up. The second meeting of the 27th, that's where the 26th was. But the initial plan said the 17th of March.
I understand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, General, you were about to explain the handover process and what this entailed. In particular, was there a briefing given to the members that were there about the process that was going to be undertaken, the purpose and where the dockets were going?
Okay.
I.e., was there a plan?
Yes, there was a plan for the handover, and I think when we all arrived, we went to General Kumalo's office where the docket, it was his boardroom, where the dockets were, and General Kumalo and myself, we gave them a briefing that these dockets were not meant to be here. They were in transit to KwaZulu-Natal because they were supposed to go to the Serious and Violent Crimes Unit or the murder and robbery. So the briefing was more on them understanding that the dockets as we take them are not meant to be in head office. And maybe you can ask then, why do we take them from KwaZulu-Natal, bring them here and take them back? And I did say, in general, Kumalo, if I read his mind, it was just, you know what, this is how I can do it. Maybe the time, we were both in Pretoria, and it would have been difficult for us to go and maybe rather bring the dockets here than have the teams here hand them over. The bulk of the members would have come from head office who actually were supposed to take the dockets. So that's why then he took the dockets and brought them here to Pretoria. But the ultimate was to move them from PKTT as a unit based in KwaZulu-Natal and take them back to the provincial commissioner and assign them within murder and robbery.
General, why do we not have that plan in writing? So a plan that says once the dockets have been handed over, this is what is to happen to them. This is who is to allocate them. This is how they are to be allocated. Why do we not have that in writing?
Yes, and I must say, as I say, Commissioner, respectfully, this was a very hasty process. I think some of the things would have been hidden under that particular action on the handing over. And I think the discussions in the meeting also informed the approach. It was not what we decided at that particular time.
Because this difficulty arises later on when you now have to say to General Mkwanazi, here are the dockets, and he says, but what am I supposed to do with them? With the dockets, yes. Yeah. I'm not going to say it was, I think Colonel Kumalo said, use the word messy. I wouldn't call it messy, but I think for me it was a very hasty process. And I do falter the execution.
In general, what did the audit process entail?
And again, I must clarify. With your docket audit and inspection, it's thorough. It's what General Mutsipe would have spoken about. But this was basically to check if the dockets we are handing over to the detectives, for example, all the documents are completed and properly filed, verify the contents and ensure that all the information is accurate, and also compare the number of the dockets we have physically with the list we have in terms of the case numbers. So that's basically more like your level one just for the handover process, which was not a detailed docket inspection or docket auditing.
And at this stage, what was the plan as regards moving the dockets then to KZN? Yeah,
in the meeting we did say that, again, taking into account that there were other activities in between, to Hopoditata, I said on the first week of April, these dockets must find their way to KwaZulu-Natal.
And then, General, you explain what then happened with the dockets after this audit process.
Yes.
Where did they ultimately go?
Brigadier Hopoditata had a team with him, and I think Colonel Mdluli was one of them, where they then took, the other instruction was for case management protocols, and also to ensure that there's no interference with with the chain of custody. You keep them safe and safeguard them. So they know, they are experts in terms of what it means to safeguard the dockets and how to actually keep them safe.
And in general, was there an appreciation at the time that the dockets would need to be moved quickly in order to not disrupt the investigation process?
There was. Initially, there was. There was. Yes.
General, you then speak about the first week of April, in particular on the 1st, about a message from Brigadier Hopoditata. Can you explain what happened there?
As per the decision of the 28th, Brigadier Hopoditata sent me a WhatsApp message in the morning reminding me of that decision to say, General, we were supposed to move the docket this week. Can the team go ahead and do their planning, their itineraries, information note for approval? So that was his message. I'm not sure if I did send it to you.
Yes, you have.
Okay.
And you explained that at that time you had other commitments. Can you explain what was happening around the time?
We, as I said, that I'm the co-chairperson of the SAPS Business Participative Partnership. We were supposed to launch a commitment dinner a day before the policing summit. And I was the steering committee chair for that particular engagement. So as I think one of the things raised by the commissioners, that in terms of protocol, I was supposed to be the one to hand them over to the PC. And also because I was the person entrusted with the responsibility in terms of the action. So I wanted to be there. I then asked Hopoditata to give me time that I conclude the two processes, that is now the commitment dinner as well as the policing summit. And then after that, we can make plans.
In general, you then say there were other commitments
Yes.
in the paragraph. Can you explain the other commitments that also tied you?
Maybe before I start responding, that commissioners, policing is one of the most unpredictable vocations you can ever enter into. You can sleep today peacefully, tomorrow you wake up, there's a massacre. You sleep peacefully today, you wake up tomorrow, there's a father who's raped a toddler, you know. So in this instance, just actually it was between the summit, where there was an alleged rape of a minor in the Eastern Cape, which garnered response from social media and nationally, and we had to divert all our resources to the Eastern Cape. So I was seized with the matter together with General Lekele, and unfortunately, again, it stalled my plans to travel to KwaZulu-Natal.
And in general, in your statement, these commitments lasted until about, you say, the 23rd of April, when you get a call from General Kumalo regarding further dockets for handover.
It was more than that. There was also Interpol in the process, because when he called me on that day, maybe to clarify that when I said we were seized with the matter, we had to brief Parliament. I had to meet with Advocate Madolo from the Eastern Cape, the DPP.
Madolo.
Yes, Madolo, yes. So, yes, physically you had to be there. And then also with the Interpol. So when General Kumalo called me on the 23rd, I was overseeing an event with other stakeholders of Interpol at the college. And General Kumalo informed me that he had 3 remaining dockets. Oh, by the way, we only signed 418 dockets. So there were 3 dockets outstanding, and those were Eastern Cape dockets. So when he called on that day, he said to me, they now have those dockets, and we must do the handover. And I then called Brigadier Hopoditata for consistency, but also because he had the briefing on this matter, to come and also collect those 3 dockets to add to the 118 to make it 121.
In general, when you speak at paragraph 41 and say that when you called Brigadier Hopoditata about the 3 dockets,
yes,
you then also communicated with him about the plan to move the dockets.
Yes. Commissioners, much as I had a noble idea that I will be there, I began to realize that the more I push the dates further, the more I actually compromise the investigations on the docket. So I said to him, please engage the DPC, Crime Detection General Mgobozi, and arrange for the dockets to be handed over. I did this taking into account that at national level, I did think, when I was alluding to the structure, say that there's a dotted line for us with the DPCs. I communicate with them on a day-to-day basis, so this was nothing anomalous. However, I think Brigadier Hopoditata found Brigadier Unene, who was acting, who said, before we can discuss, please pass the matter to the PC. So then he phoned me back and said to me, General, Brigadier Gunene says that before we can actually enter into this handover process, can we pass the matter through the PC? And I must be honest to the Commission, in my mind, I thought General Mkhwanazi knew. He was in the 5th of March meeting where General Kumalo presented that one slide of the plan. So beyond that, I thought, or maybe my expectation was he should have known. So when I called him, I'm like, no, it's all systems go.
And General, on the day you called him, what was his reaction?
Yeah, as I said, I was in an Interpol meeting, so I only called him on the 24th of April. And General Mkhwanazi, he was confused by my call first, and also my request to say, we are bringing the dockets, you know. And he said to me, "Angazi ukhuluma ngani? I don't know what you're talking about, you know." So I then clarified, no, but General, there's this disbandment, and General Mkhwanazi said to me, just hold it there. First of all, I don't know how those dockets got to Pretoria. And secondly, I was not informed of this. And he didn't say to me, don't bring the dockets. He said to me, if you bring the dockets, know this, I won't be responsible for them. So for me, that was enough to say, I can't do that, because the PC is the ultimate authority of the docket. So if he distances himself from them, I cannot forcefully take the docket to him. You know, and I remember, if maybe I can take the commissioners to paragraph 42, where I say, and in all honesty, Shamase is a very strong man. Shamase, in Zulu, we would say, "Uibamba ngezandla zombili," you know. And on that day, he just went down, like, he said to me, "Hey, General, what's wrong, Moshelila?" That's the moment I got a wake-up call. You know, this, Shamase at some point was my divisional commissioner, so I know him. I worked with him. That for me was a wake-up call to say, Konok Shaman, there's something that's amiss in this whole process, you know. And I did apologize, and I said I didn't know, and also I had no idea that this matter would invoke so much emotions on you. And I said to him, I think I'm just done, and I won't call him again. On the 25th, I called the National Commissioner, and I informed him that I did phone General Mkhwanazi to hand over the dockets, and General Mkhwanazi said he's not taking them, and if we bring them, he will not be responsible for them. Another surprise, National Commissioner, I remember we discussed at some point that we don't want another task team. You know, so I said to him, General, in all fairness, if General Mkhwanazi refuses the dockets, I don't think we need to even think task team. You can't disband a task team and formulate a task team. That is not operationally sound. The National Commissioner advised that actually talk to your boss, and I want to use his words exactly. I'm not sure where I wrote it. Where he said...
At paragraph 45?
5. Okay. And he just said to me, your boss should decide what to do with those dockets. Now, again, it was another take me out of it.
And was this a reference to General Sibiya?
Yes, when he said, your boss. Yes, so he said I should engage General Sibiya. So I called General Sibiya on the same day, the 25th.
General, before you move to the call with General Sibiya,
yes.
At paragraph 45, you explained that during the National Commissioner's testimony, he testified that at some point he heard that the dockets were in head office.
Yes.
Can you explain, at the point that you call him to say General Mkhwanazi is refusing, did he know that the dockets were in the head office?
Which paragraph are we at?
At paragraph 45.
45. Okay, where he said he had informed General Sibiya that those dockets should be returned to their station of origin. My sense, after I listened to the testimony, then made sense when he responded. So which means he was not expecting the dockets to be in Pretoria. That's the National Commissioner, based on his response.
General, can I take you back to 28 March 2025?
Yes.
In the action plan, item 2 on page 10.
Okay.
So the dockets would have been collected on the 27th. According to the action plan, there was supposed to be a stakeholder engagement with the NPA, including prioritization of the 114 cases. Did that engagement happen?
If the commissioner remember earlier when I testified, I said the focus of the plan just was central now to the dockets. All the other actions took the secondary role. So it was never discussed, and I don't know if it happened.
So the dockets were collected and NPA was not told that they are going to be audited and sent back to KZN. They ended up sitting in Pretoria for
Yes.
4 months.
Yes.
NPA was in the dark.
I believe so, yes, Commissioner. And again, I think, as I said, that of all the actions here, the one that was on the spotlight and the focus was just on the exchange of the dockets. The engagement with the NPA, and also because I was not responsible for that, so I don't know if it happened or if it didn't. I think the Natcom can respond to that.
General, it's not quite directly related, but it's
Yes.
because you're discussing the plan
Yes.
with Commissioner Kumalo, so let me just ask my question. I see I've promoted him to General.
Yeah, to
Kumalo.
General. You are creating more confusion.
I think there's too many Kumalos in the room. My question really is, the plan as we have it in page 10, it gives you the items.
Yes.
Now, we know from other evidence and that at some point, General Sibiya gave an instruction that the members must go back to their,
respective units.
To their units.
Yes.
Was that ever an item in the plan, in any of the an earlier plan and the later plan?
Commissioner, again, I'll take you back to my evidence earlier. I did say that in General Sibiya's instruction, it said that the members should go back. But in the meeting of the 6th with the discussions, the agreement was that the 114 dockets must stay with the PKTT. So as a result, that item of the members moving back was, I think, thrown away. However, the deployment was reduced. Yes.
Thank you.
General, if we could then go to paragraph 46. You were about to tell us about the call you then make to General Sibiya after you've spoken to the National Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioners. When I called General Sibiya, I then informed him of my discussion with General Mkhwanazi and that he actually refused to take the dockets and that if we bring them, he won't be responsible for them. And also that the National Commissioner said I should tell him that he must direct how this dockets should be dealt with. I think I put it kindly instead of what National Commissioner said. Maybe to proceed, because already Brigadier Hopodi Tata was standing in for General Motsepe, so the dockets were already within SVC at National. Then he said there should be a team that should be established at National to continue with the investigations.
So he was suggesting exactly that which you said to the National Commissioner will not make sense to do. General Sibiya wanted a task team to be created.
Maybe on hindsight, Commissioners, for me, maybe this was a point where we were supposed to again regather ourselves and then say, how do we deal with the problem together with the National Commissioner? I'm not sure if the outcome would have been different. In Zulu, we say, or maybe let me use English, it's water under the bridge, so we cannot go back.
My view, General, is that all of you, from General Masemola, General Sibiya, yourself, Kumalo,
yes.
you let the victims of crime down because these are now internal squabbles at senior national police level, and it is impacting victims of crime because the dockets are sitting in Pretoria for several months. There's no plan B in place. There was a plan A, it didn't work. Mkwanazi says, I'm not taking responsibility for these dockets because I don't know why they were taken in the first place. As national leadership, there should have been a plan B to say, now that we are where we are, what do we do with these dockets? And I haven't seen anything. And I think all of you should take responsibility for that and should apologize actually to the nation and the victims of crime that you let them down in this instance.
And Commissioner, I totally agree with you. And I did say when I think there was a question around the impact of the minister's decision, and for me talk to exactly that the decisions we make have got far-reaching implications. So the process being hasty didn't help the process. Didn't help us that we didn't have time to plan and say what happens because we just had to make actions as we moved along. So I do agree with you, and I think we do owe this nation an apology.
General, you say there that General Sibiya advised that a task team be established. Did you say anything to him in response to this suggestion?
I've always advocated the approach that you cannot disband a task team and have another task team. Then why disband this one if it's working and have another one? I mean, I don't think even in terms of auditing, we would get away with that, you know. But maybe most importantly for me, and I think this is where I also agree with Commissioner Kumalo to say, after realizing that this has become a challenge, and it now is my baby. So I went back to the plan and said, but my responsibility was to do the handover. General Sibiya is actually the reason for the docket to be in Pretoria. So as the Divisional Commissioner said, he didn't say, I deal with it, General Sibiya must deal with it, so I said, he must deal with it.
And so, General, when he... Oh.
Sorry. I suppose, I mean, is it fair to say that if General Sibiya had become in charge of the dockets because he gave the instruction that they should come to head office, it was incumbent upon him to direct a plan B, as it seems he ultimately did, by saying audits must be done, a task team should be constituted that will deal with the investigations. I mean, he was implementing the minister's decision. Is that not fair to say?
No, you are correct, Commissioner. You know, I think safe to say the whole process was flawed because under normal, we've never had such. I gave examples of operations that we are doing in the Eastern Cape and Emanguzi, where your decommissioning is done properly. And Commissioner, there's a plan. And one example is in one of the provinces, where I got a call from the commander to say, but General, we are being decommissioned. I'm left with only 2 detectives and my docket load is quite high. Can we get more detectives? That's how it happens, you know. So this was business unusual. So I think for me, the results show for themselves.
General Sibiya, would he have experience of decommissioning of other teams, experience in the sense of knowledge, not necessarily that he was personally involved? Would he know that there's a way of doing this and this is what we normally do?
General Sibiya has been in the police longer than I have, so I suppose he would have known. But like I say, it's a supposition. I'm not sure on fact.
But you would expect
Yes.
that he would know
Yes.
that there are ways in which the police deal with decommissioning of task teams. Thank you.
General, just a follow-up question.
Yes.
Assuming Plan A had been implemented, do you believe that there was capacity at local station level for the detectives to take over these dockets from the PKTT? So if Plan A had been implemented as envisaged and these dockets were reallocated to local stations, was there capacity there to continue with these investigations?
I will start by saying that for me, I think the PKTT was effective enough to deal with those, but also they were seized with the right mandate. Taking them to the station, again, would have led to your single docket investigation, and I think in dealing with your organized murders or hit murders, don't require your conventional policing or investigation methods. You need to go unconventional. So in that way, I don't think it would have received the same attention or the resources that were within the PKTT.
General, you then, at paragraph 47, sort of sum up your sense of where your responsibility stopped. Can you explain this to the Commission?
As a Divisional Commissioner, I always respect the mandate of the PC. And sometimes I see it as we need each other to be able to function optimally. So when General Mkhwanazi distances himself from the dockets and the National Commissioner says detectives deal with it, that signaled to me that I don't want to get myself involved. As I said, General Sibiya, in my message, I'm here to work and not to get myself involved in any issues that affect policing. So for me, after those calls and talking to General Sibiya, honestly, I said, I'm done. And for me, commissioners would talk to my role, because I did my part. I spoke to General Mkhwanazi, he refused. What more can I do?
And then, General, at the middle point of that paragraph, you say there that it was General Sibiya's instructions, follow-up and inquiries to both yourself and General Kumalo that caused the dockets to be removed. Do you care to explain this?
If there was no instruction from General Sibiya, and commissioners, I'm saying this again, having a blindfold of what took place in January with the National Commissioner, the discussions, mine was just to do what was written by General Sibiya and General Kumalo's letter. So if he didn't write those two letters, those dockets would not have come to head office. Or actually, for me, there would not have been an implementation. It would have been different of the ministers as he directed. So for me, the dockets being here was as a result of his instructions.
Thank you, General. And then at paragraph 48, you speak about a letter that you then received from General Sibiya. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. The dockets were handed over on the 28th of March, 2025. And we tried to hand them over, then we hit a wall, there was stagnation, and on the 24th of April, whilst doing my day-to-day administration, then my office gives me a letter signed by the DNC dated 22nd April 2024. It's a new letter over and above the one of the 2nd. And in this letter, he indicated that in complying with that directive of the minister and subsequent directions, which means the one that he gave me in General Kumalo. Now, I must also hasten to mention, Commissioner, that this letter was written to both myself and General Kumalo, not only to me. It was one letter. And he said we must conclude this handover process by the 24th of April. And he specified amongst the actions that this included transfer of all dockets, closed currently under investigation, and court-going docket to the Division, Detective and Forensic Services.
General, in this letter and these instructions, wouldn't that be against the plan to be asking for all dockets, including those that were court-going?
Probably that's the reason why there was no action on the letter, because in my assessment, he was now overreaching. Remember, there were his instructions, then the matters got a ventilation, or we did ventilate them at the ministers' meetings. And there were agreements, and there was that in-principle approval. Now, outside of those, now he's asking for all dockets. Now I'm thinking, but all dockets under investigation already have been transferred, so which ones are these? It was confusing, and probably unwittingly, Kumalo and I never really took the letter seriously, and we never engaged on it.
And then, General, you talk about or make an observation regarding General Mutsipa's testimony about a meeting that transpired on the 19th of May. At paragraph 50, do you want to explain
Yes.
this to the commissioners?
Okay.
Before you do that, General, on that, just a follow-up on this last question about this instruction, which you
Yes.
say is overreaching. In fact, it seems to me that even the closure date,
Yes.
because the letter says, and the letter, is it the same letter at page 13, I think? It says you must give a final feedback report
By the 25th
on the
of April.
25th of April 25, when your plan at page 10 says you will submit quarterly reports, and it has the first date as the 4th of July 2025 and continuously. So it seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, that with this instruction to you, General Sibiya is actually fixing his own timelines now, contrary to the plan that you say was adopted in principle in the presence of the minister.
I think the commissioner is correct, which is also why we find it odd. I mean, I found it odd that, and also probably the tone when I read it, it was more like, do it, because you're writing on the 25th, and you want all of these things by the 25th, no, 22nd, and you want all of these things by the 25th. So it didn't also make operational sense. So it went to that immediate, approach to getting things done. And again, as I said, we were actually focused on the plan. So on the plan, there was no action that spoke to what he was instructing.
And before this letter, did he at any point explain to you why the agency now, contrary to what the plan is saying? Did he have any conversation with you?
No conversation, and probably as we were talking, again, there was no follow-up on this letter, unlike the first one. Because on the first one, there were inquiries, there were reminders. But on this one, even though there was no compliance to it, there was no push to say, I gave you an instruction, General Kumalo, General Senthumule, how far are you?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would this instruction increase the number to over 300 now? Because I'm looking at the second unnumbered paragraph 2, the paragraph just after the numbered paragraph 2. It says all dockets closed, currently under investigation and in court. I'm assuming that once you add closed dockets, you go over 300 now, based on where PKTT
it's 600 because it meant the entire workload of the PKTT, and including the dockets that we said must go back to the stations for filing or archiving.
General, in your statement, you then talk about General Mutsipa's testimony as it related to a meeting that would have taken place on the 19th of May. Can you take us through that?
The only thing I have to respond on here is that on Mondays, as SAPS senior management, that would be the National Commissioner, the DNCs, Divisional Commissioners and Provincial Commissioners, we have got what we call high-density meetings. Those meetings are never postponed unless probably it's matters beyond our control as an organization. And after that meeting, on the 18th, there was a meeting with General Nkua where we discussed the Forensic Science Laboratory. There was an intention for the ministers both of Public Works and the SAPS to ensure that we kickstart the relocation and functionality of the Forensic Science Laboratory in KwaZulu-Natal. So I think when there was no joy from both ministers, we were all told to travel to KwaZulu-Natal on that Monday of the 19th. And we traveled with the police jet with the National Commission. So there was no way that I could have been in a meeting with both General Sibiya and General Motsepe to discuss the dockets on that day. I've attached my itineraries as well as my accommodation receipt just to show that actually I was not in Gauteng on that day. Let me say I was traveling to KwaZulu-Natal on that day.
Was General Sibiya part of your traveling party?
According to the itinerary, he was there, but he was not in KwaZulu-Natal.
And so, General, your testimony is that you were then not involved in the meeting that took place on the 19th of May where the way forward on the
No.
dockets was discussed.
No.
General, then we can move to paragraph 51. And you state there that at no stage were the dockets kept with you or stored in your office or any of that. Can you explain the chain of custody there and where the dockets were housed?
Okay. I think in one of the testimonies, also by General Sibiya as well, that there was where it was said that the dockets were kept with the Divisional Commissioner. And I also wish to put it on record here that at no stage were those dockets in my office. Brigadier Khopoditata and the team took them to head office, and they would have been under the command of General Motsepe, which is Serious and Violent Crimes, since they were removed from General Kumalo's custody. And maybe if I can go further, just to add value or maybe credence to what I'm saying, General Motsepe informed me that when the evidence leaders were, and because she was reported directed to General Sibiya on the docket, so they asked her, why, where was General Senthumule? She correctly said, I was traveling. I think between April and July, it is the season of the AGM of the police commissioners. As I said, one of my roles is to be the chairperson of the permanent committee, subcommittee for the police chiefs, as well as leading your crime investigation division. So between April and July, annually, we are actually engaged in those activities. So the bulk of the time, I was traveling. The last meeting I attended was in July, what the ministers' meeting is called the MCO, where we now had to present all our plans, police, defense, health, and all the other subcommittees to the ministers for approval.
And then, General, you say you wanted to clarify another issue in relation to General Motsepe's testimony, and this is towards the end of paragraph 51, regarding the instructions given to Brigadier Khopoditata.
Yeah. Maybe respectfully, commissioners, I think any leader or commander would actually be at fault if the reason you move a docket is for auditing. We did auditing. Those are done at a station. You don't take a docket from its original place of investigation to wherever to audit. If it does happen, you take a copy, but not the docket. So those dockets didn't come to head office for auditing. It was specifically for a handover. And no instruction was ever given to Brigadier Khopoditata in that regard. The only instruction was just for safekeeping and safeguarding of those dockets. Thank you, Commissioner.
Then I think it gets more complicated then because we engaged General Mutsipe on
Yes.
why the dockets were brought to head office. And she categorically said that it was for purposes of auditing, in so many words. I say it gets more complicated because then I'm lost as to why
The dockets were here.
Why they
Yes.
were brought to head office. Because if you say it was for purposes of a handover to what end?
Can I clarify,
Yes.
Commissioner? And I think it's also in line with what is written and what Kumalo and I had to do. And I must also hasten to mention that General Mutsipe was not part of the processes from the beginning up until General Mkhonazi was engaged. So I really, on authority, cannot respond as to why she would make that either statement or assumption. As we said, General Kumalo on the 28th, I think there was 27th, there were emotions in the meeting, and we then said, let's conclude the process. So the dockets were literally here to be moved from the team to be taken back to KwaZulu-Natal. And you would then ask again, but why couldn't you do it in KwaZulu-Natal?
That was exactly my next
Yes,
question. Because it sounds to me as though it would have been a handover for handover's sake. It just didn't make sense. Because from your testimony, the dockets are at head office and they immediately had to be
Taken
back in
back to
KZN
KwaZulu-Natal.
by April. So why on earth did they have to come to head office? I just do not understand. It's not your problem.
No, and I understand,
You did not
Commissioners.
disband the PKTT. You did not say that the dockets must come to head office. But I'm just trying
Yeah.
to understand what was going on here.
No,
And General Mutsipe gave a reason. Of course, we engaged her quite seriously on that, and we told her that the reason she gave did not make sense. Now, on your evidence, we discount that as the reason. So it's handing over, and it appears for handing over's sake. And that's why I'm trying to understand what the rational basis for all of this could have been.
Thank you, Chair. I suppose that doesn't require my response. It sounds more rhetoric. Thank you.
Well, General, we do know that the dockets were inspected.
Yes.
The language used is auditing. That's what
Yes,
Major
Mutsipe
General
called.
Mutsipe uses, auditing. We do know that they were inspected. And perhaps that was the real reason they came up here. Because as the chairperson says, that firstly, you say we don't do audits. That's your evidence. We don't do audits at head office. Audits are done
We do it at the station.
at stations. So that could not have been the reason that it is done. They came up to be handed over so that they go back, as the chairperson says. It just doesn't make sense. But the fact we know from the evidence, including of Major General Mutsipe, is they were inspected. So perhaps that was the real reason that they were brought up here, to inspect them, to see what is inside those dockets, because we know that's the only thing that happened.
And Chairperson, is this the point where I actually exercise plausible deniability? Because it's on a lighter note, Commissioner.
We know you were not there. I'm just putting to you what the evidence is, that as we theorize about why the dockets would have been moved up and down in a way that doesn't seem to make sense. What we do know, though, is they were inspected. Someone was instructed to look into what's in those dockets. And perhaps that's the real reason they came up here.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Following up on Commissioner Baloy's point, I suppose it was not a question because you did not respond. Are you aware that following the audit, I don't want to use open quote, close quote like chair, but you get my point. There was then a proposal, a financial proposal, prepared by General Motsepe. And as I understood that proposal, the dockets were now going to be reallocated, no longer go back to KZN, but reallocated to various detectives in Gauteng. And I even quizzed there, I remember, about somebody who's in stock theft and how that person can possibly investigate political killings in KwaZulu-Natal. Are you aware of that plan, first of all, that proposal?
I was aware. If I can take you back again, General Sibiya did say when I spoke to him about Natcom's response and General Mkhwana just responded to say that they will have a team at head office. And I think that came also with asking for financial authority for a team to be assembled. So I am aware. So probably General Motsepe was now, what can you call it, implementing that General Sibiya's proposal.
And was your approval sought in relation to that proposal?
As
Because
I said, as I said, when National Commissioner wrote his comments, he sent that letter back to me.
Yes.
I think it happened when I was in Tanzania, Dar es Salaam. So I was not party to any either discussion or signature to that too.
In the normal course, would you have had to approve it
Yes,
before it's
I would have
implemented?
had to recommend, not approve it.
Yes.
Yes.
And you did not recommend it?
It didn't come to me.
Thank you.
It didn't come to me. Thank you, Commissioner.
General, and had it come to you?
Can I be protected, Commissioners? Thank you.
Thank you, General. Then at paragraph 52, you speak about a meeting, a minister's meeting that was called. Can you explain the events around that meeting?
In responding to this, Commissioners, I want to take you back to the meeting of the 28th when the minister said he will no longer engage with us on the PKTT disbandment matter. He will only talk to the National Commissioner directly. But on the 23rd of June 2025, General Sibiya sent me a WhatsApp message, I'm not sure if I did send, where the minister had called a meeting and National Commissioner extended the invite of that meeting to General Sibiya and General Kumalo, to the both of them. General Sibiya called me and asked that I assist, actually that I join him in that meeting. And I remember saying to him, I think it's even on WhatsApp, to say that, but the meeting was only extended and limited to you and General Kumalo. He then asked me to come and assist them with writing a report in terms of the process and where we were. When I got to his office, General Motsepe was there assisting him with writing the report. Unfortunately, we had a SAPS progress report meeting to the minister at Crime Intelligence on that day. So I did say that I wouldn't be able to sit with them. And I had to sit in a meeting with BAXA colleagues to prepare a report for the minister for that evening. Thank you.
General, just for completeness.
Part of your last sentence, in paragraph 52, you say, I had no interest in getting involved in any further interaction with the dockets, especially after my discussion with Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi and the National Commissioner. Why was this so?
I don't think there's anything wrong with being honest when you want to refuse to associate yourself with something that you learned later that actually it's not according to process. If the National Commissioner is distancing himself from it, I felt that actually I don't want to be part of it. So all these meetings and my schedule actually provided a platform for me really to focus my energies where it mattered on policing matters.
General, just for completeness, were you aware or made aware of the inspection report that Colonel Mdluli authored?
I only heard about it when General Sibiya spoke about it in the ad hoc committee.
And were you aware of the inspection report that General Motsepe did on the basis of General Mdluli's report?
Okay. I need to explain this using the police process or the police protocols. Normally, when a report is written for approval, it's written in an information note by the author. It's quality assured or controlled by the supervisor, and it goes through all. For example, if it's Colonel Mudluli who's the author, Brigadier Hopoditata would be the recommender, General Motsepe, it will be myself, and the DNC will be the approver. So I cannot speak on authority on something that didn't go through the process and that I have not physically seen.
Thank you,
Commissioner.
And then does this mean you also have no knowledge of the leakage of that report?
I'm not even sure what that leakage is. I think when we were consulting, you spoke about it. I'm not sure if, is it like the detective's report with all the signatures or just a document that was leaked?
General Motsepe's evidence was that it was a report. It was just a report. It didn't have any signature. She hadn't signed it.
No, then I'm not aware.
It was presented in the meeting of the 19th of May, well, in her testimony to you and General Sibiya.
Unfortunately, I cannot comment on that because I was not there, and secondly, I've never seen the report.
Thank you, General. And then now we'll move to a new topic, and that relates to General Sibiya's attitude towards disbandment. You, at paragraph 52 of your statement, you talk about General Sibiya's attitude and...
Are you referring to paragraph 53? You said 52.
My apologies, Chair. 53, indeed. You speak there that General Sibiya was adamant about the PKTT's dockets being removed from the PKTT. Can you talk about that, and in particular, the preoccupation you mentioned in that paragraph?
I must have a disclaimer first, Commissioners, that I'm writing this in view of the knowledge I had after the 6th of July. So my assessment and also what I observed come from what happened, then the push, and then what General Mkhonazi revealed. General Sibiya was adamant that actual General Kumalo shouldn't be heading the PKTT. It's a detective matter, which I differ because it's a combat matter, and therefore the dockets must come to me. He was adamant through inquiries, through like asking to say how far are we, but further, he was preoccupied with the notion that General Kumalo and crime intelligence were investigating him, and I remember him saying in Zulu, I think I do have a message to this effect where he said CI is investigating him, and I'm not sure whether this is correct, Commissioners. I'm a Christian, and I'm not perfect, But if somebody is facing a situation, my first response would be scripture. So I would be responding to motivate him, because at the time I didn't know, to say no, but be strong, this will come to pass,
General, before you move, I think I understand what Bayangi Gijimisa. Oh, yeah, but
Yeah.
for the rest of us, can you explain what that means?
Can I start with a joke, Commissioner? So Abafana Baka Kumalo also include Commissioner Kumalo. No, it basically means that General Kumalo's people are chasing me.
Thank you, General. And then just to demonstrate this point, can you please turn to HKS 6, which is at page 21 of the annexures? And can you take the commissioners through that exchange?
Okay. In support of my assessment, Commissioner, I actually go back to a clip that General Sibiya sent me off to General Mkhwanazi, where he said that Kumalo is assisted by the PKTT to investigate me. And I think he sent it to me in the evening. So I said, "Good evening, General. I can't open the clip. Can you please send?" And then I asked, "Gauteng CI you mean?" Because he just said Gauteng. So Gauteng for me, I'm thinking General Kumalo wouldn't be responsible for Gauteng investigations, you know. And I'm thinking it could then be Gauteng CI.
And then his response on the following page.
Yeah, no, he says then both Gauteng CI and Kumalo, but they can only help themselves. They clearly don't know me. And I proceed to say, "Good morning, my DNC. It's not a great feeling to be chased for no reason. I've been there, I know. God again, we pray a God who says he will fight our battles. Vengeance is his, says the Lord." Then he responds by saying, "The problem arises when you get chased by small people."
Thank you, General. And reading that, or in that moment, what was your feelings or understanding of this interaction or what he was raising?
Maybe before that, that page 21, the first exchange from him, I don't know if its context is what is contained in the clip. We don't have a context of why he would have said that.
So which one?
At page 21, he says, "So Gauteng is assisted by the PKTT to investigate me." And then you say Gauteng CI, or you mean General, but then we don't know what precedes.
Yes, there's nothing.
These exchanges.
This is the first message. So he sent me a video of General Mkhwanazi and then a message underneath.
What, is there anything in the video clip that
I couldn't open it.
That makes that statement make sense?
Unfortunately, as you can read the next one, it says I can't open. I think I tried to double click.
Yeah.
And I had to get clarity. What are you talking about? Are you talking about crime intelligence in Gauteng or just Gauteng? Because there are two Kumalos. Yeah. There's Kumalo CI, there's Kumalo detectives.
Okay.
Yes.
So does that mean you never got to know
what's in the video?
What's in the video, but also what he's talking about when he says Gauteng CI and Kumalo are chasing him by Mkhichimisa. You never got to know what he's referring to.
If the commissioner reads, it says so. Remember, he's been saying that Umbulazi Mkhichimisa. So for me, this was nothing new. So whatever was on the video was supporting his notion that Kumalo was investigating him.
So in his saying to you that Kumalo is chasing him, in him saying that to you, he had never said to you why he says so. He's never said to you this and that has happened. He's never given you that kind of background to those statements.
I'm prompted to move to the other paragraph where I actually say that General Sibiya was prone to cast suspicion around those of us who were working closely with him. So I've been in a position where he said I was investigating him. Actually, where there was a case registered in IPID, and there were people who came into my office, like I was busy with the president. I think we were launching the lab in Eastern Cape. There was a raid in my office in Arcadia by IPID and Hawks when he said I was surveilling him. And that was not there. So for me, when he says these things about Kumalo, I think I've got that notion that General always does this, you know. So I don't think I had to ask Guti, why are you saying it? Because I've been on the receiving end of that.
So the short answer is you don't know
No,
why
I
he
don't
was
know.
saying that.
I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. He never expanded to me. Thank you, Commissioner.
General, in your response to Commissioner Baloyi, you touched on the investigation then into you after he was suspicious of you. Is there anything you'd like to add in explaining what happened there?
There's a member within my division in forensic services who was a critical witness in a corruption matter by AXA. And that member had his wife and kids' photos taken. Apparently he got shocked and then he collapsed. He was taken to hospital. When in hospital, there were pictures of him taken in hospital. So probably they were saying, we know where you are. You know. So there was a complaint that came through the Divisional Commissioner, and General Masamula said, I need to provide protection for that member. So in the execution of that, I don't know where the issue was, but apparently he said to the National Commissioner that I actually had hired people officially under official guise to surveil him. And National Commissioner didn't know because, I mean, he didn't know that it's this issue, you know. Fast forward, I engaged National Commissioner. I hear there's this thing because people talk and everybody looks at you with suspicious eyes. And I must say it's painful. Hence, I understood what he was saying when he said they were investigating him. So Natcom said to me, but engage Sibiya if this is the issue. So when I engaged him, he said to me, no, General, if there's nothing wrong, don't worry, they won't find anything. So you can imagine every day having to wake up and there's an investigation that you don't even know anything about, you know. And I think the worst part was when my office was traumatized. I think my PA, who was the main suspect, because they said she was the one who was making these guys sign overtime and for kilometers. So her laptop and iPad were taken. And I must also say that these were subsequently returned to my office because nothing could be found, you know. So for me, when this thing of him saying he was being investigated or Kumalo was investigating him, it made me go back to what I experienced.
You still in paragraph 54?
Commissioner, I was going to move so you can ask your question.
Yes. And the Hawks and IPID, what were they looking for? And did you ever get to know who are these people in terms of their names?
I actually never got to know. I think the person with more information would be my staff officer. And I was actually shocked to learn that even the Hawks were there. Because I asked myself, why? And apparently they came with cars and they were dressed in the overalls. And I thank God I was not there. I think I would have been really, really affected. But I never got to know for a reason that I believe that whatever they were trying to do, I knew I'm fine. I think that was my posture to say, I don't have to go search who are they, what are they looking for. If it's an investigation, let it go ahead. I respected that.
You suggest in the paragraph that General Sibiya had something to do with IPID and Hawks officers being there with whatever they were doing.
I said there was a case registered, so I suppose that's why IPID, I'm not sure why the Hawks were there, but as I say, my PA would be in a better place because actually she was in the office, I was in the Eastern Cape.
And why do you say, or do you think that General Sibiya would have had anything to do with all of this?
Because he was the one who had the case registered against my PA.
So he's the one
That had the case registered.
Oh, I see.
Yes, he's the one who actually went to IP to open a case on this matter.
And the Hawks, and to the Hawks.
I'm not sure why the Hawks were there.
Okay, I suppose he will tell us maybe.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
And General, you covered the events of February and the text exchange there when you were asked to deal with that matter. So we'll just move on to the next topic, which is your attitude towards disbandment. At paragraph 56, you deal with whether the minister could unilaterally make that decision. Can you take us through your thinking?
This requires us to go back to 2018 when the inter-ministerial task team was actually re-established, because it was there before, and I think it had to be re-established in 2018. It was the ministers who sat, discussed, and developed a policy which the National Commissioner and other heads of department had to implement, leading to the National Commissioner now establishing the PKTT. So I mean that he could not just decide on his own to do it. It was not only Minister Cele who sat and implemented the President's directive.
And you go on to talk about the meeting of March 2025 there, in the middle of the paragraph. In fact, the meeting, similar to the meeting held, should have been held. Is that what's the point you're making, that a similar meeting should have been taken place at the level of the IMC?
Not necessarily at the level of the IMC. The PKT already is running, but at an organizational level. You know, I think it would have been fair to have similar meetings that I also say Shamas or General Mkwanazi should have been a central figure in those meetings. He is the one responsible for policing a province.
You also say that the minister should have been briefed on the work of the PKTT. Is your understanding that prior to making this decision, he wasn't briefed?
It's my knowledge. Maybe the briefing took place, but I was not there. However, from what I understand now, there should have been a proper briefing. We sit at the NOC, which is our National Operations Center, and we discuss such matters almost every week or every month, if we can't do it on a weekly basis. So this, for me, would have been one of those NCCF. That's the National Crime Combating Forum, chaired by General Musikidi as the head of policing, where she directs interventions. And if, like, the decommissioning is done from her office.
And then, General, at paragraph 58, you say even if he could make a decision regarding disbandment, he could not have directed that it happen immediately. Can you explain why you say this?
For me, maybe the even if he could part, I would negate. Ne? But say for any decommissioning, there is no immediate. That's my submission.
Thank you, General. And I think you have given us an example in other provinces where there have been decommissioning.
I wanted to say, but I would be reluctant to state it as generally as you do, because there could be a unit that has been shown to act in a most deplorable manner, and whose operations would just have to be brought to a halt immediately. I can't give examples. I'm not an expert in policing, but I would imagine that there would be such situations where that there would just be no justification for that unit acting deplorably, as I say, to exist for one day, for any additional day longer. So I'm just saying perhaps you should not state it as generally as you do.
And actually, I'm tempted to respond, because even if there's deplorability in terms of a team, there's investigations within that team. So maybe we can talk about combat members or whoever is involved. Just hypothetically speaking. I hear you, Commissioner.
Yeah, but in that instance, perhaps
Yes.
There will be nothing stopping everything being transferred elsewhere. But that discredited unit having to come to an immediate halt.
There's
I
still a-
admit I'm not a policeman, but
Yes.
I just cannot, in my mind, discount that altogether as a possibility.
I will leave it with you then, Commissioner. Thank you.
The example that comes to mind is if the PKTT was at a political rally and they committed a massacre where tens or hundreds of people were killed, would it not be justifiable in such a case to say this unit can no longer exist, it should be disbanded immediately?
Maybe in my mind, Commissioners, I'm trying to separate the members from the functions, because there are functions that are not necessarily attached to the members, but to a structure. So for me, I would remove the members who are involved. Let me use organized crime as an example. If members of organized crime are perpetuating atrocities to communities, it is not organized crime investigations unit, it is the members. So you remove that rot. And again, it's a process, because you can't just, there will be disciplinary criminal investigations, but there should be sustainability of the team and probably changing the team and putting people who are actually committed and responsible to fulfill the mission of that particular structure. And I think I hear your argument, but for me, I'm trying to separate the people. It's like now in the police, we are in this position. So you can't say you remove everybody from the police. You know, I think we have an obligation to serve. So if you remove all of them, there's going to be a gap in service delivery. And again, I think, as you rightfully said, the cases will be adversely affected. So I'm not sure about the immediacy. Based on my experience, I've never had a situation where something had to be halted immediately. And I hear your argument, Commissioner. Thank you.
Has the minister, in the time before he went on leave, or he was placed on leave, has he looked at, reviewed, if that's the word that we choose to use, at other task teams of the SAPS and their performance, their effectiveness, and whether any action needs to be taken in respect of those?
I would respond not only on teams, because on teams, I've never heard of a team that was under scrutiny or under review by the minister. But he did engage on improvement of processes, operations, investigations, particularly the detectives and forensic. So anything outside of that, I would not have any knowledge of.
So as far as you know, the PKTT is really the only team that he has looked at,
Yes.
and made a decision as he did.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
How many task teams do you remember offhand? Are they in the SAPS?
There is a lot, and I think I would have to go to NOC to get those figures, but there's a lot. We have in the Eastern Cape, we have in the Western Cape, we have in KwaZulu-Natal, we have in Mpumalanga, so there is a number of intervention teams.
And all of them are national task teams?
All of them are national.
Okay. Thank you.
I think a figure just under 10 was mentioned.
It's more than 10.
More
Commissioner.
than? Okay.
Yes. There is a lot. Because
Okay, thank you.
if, for example, we have a community engagement, and I'm going to use the Eastern Cape as an example, and there are issues there that relates to murders, extortion. We had a rise in insurance murders. So immediately, the National Commissioner then calls all of us and say, let's deploy a team. And that is done through combat. That's the National Operations Center. Thank you, Commissioner.
Chair, just for some guidance,
Let's continue. I think we are close to the end.
yes, certainly, Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Bowen.
General, at paragraph 59, you talk about the necessity of consulting. and that you would have been one of the people that ought to have been consulted. Can you explain this?
And I also, in my response, I want to separate a person from a post, or actually a position. So for this to happen, all the operational heads, not just myself, crime intelligence, operations, visible policing, as well as detectives and forensic, they are key in such decisions, because we deploy our members in support of the province who are actually called from I think there's a word for it, I just forgot it now. They are on detachment duty. So they are detached from their original place of work, and they are detached to that particular structure. So all of us, because there's budgeting that affects my budget, so we need to all be consulted.
General, if you look at the last sentence in paragraph 59, you say there that the divisions should have been notified or of the instruction from, or of the disbandment instruction. Is it notified or is it consulted, or both?
It could be both. Notified because it comes through an instruction from the NCCF. So I will then have to call the DNC, and I want to use another example where one of the provinces, again, there was a team there, and it was decommissioned by the NCCF, and we were notified. However, there were almost 200 dockets on hand, and all the detectives had to return to their station of origin. We then made a request to General Musigidi to only extend the detectives to conclude their work. So we were notified, and I think through consultation, we were able to get an extension for the detectives to continue with their work.
And I think you've given the example in paragraph 60, so I won't
Yes.
take you there. And then at paragraph 61, you again talk about what you've heard about the one-to-one dockets and being brought for verification. Do you want to place that paragraph on record?
I think I did cover the first part in terms of either auditing or verification. But I want to just add to say that for me, now on hindsight, what became a concern was the deliberate exclusion of the provincial commissioner in the process, you know. And maybe it's a lesson also for us as people who are implementing, that we should begin to ask questions, you know, not just move because there is an instruction. I think for me, it was a critical, I can't even call it an oversight. I think it's actually suspicious, to say the least.
Why don't you please do what Ms. Poe requested, to just read the whole paragraph into the record. We know we've touched on some of the issues here.
It's okay, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Paragraph 61, I have heard that the 121 dockets were brought to head office for verification. I dispute this. The dockets were brought to head office for a proper handover from the PKTT to the detective. And this is and always was my understanding. And on hindsight, the entire handover process was not necessary, and I think it could have been done differently with the involvement of the PC, General Mkhwanazi. I consider the decision to disband the PKTT to be irrational and suspiciously calculated, given General Mkhwanazi's deliberate exclusion. As the PC, he is best placed to evaluate the effectiveness and lack thereof of teams within his province. And as stated above, General Mkhwanazi was completely unaware of the disbandment plan, and the moment he learned of it, he objected to it.
Thank you, General. In your concluding paragraph,
Before you do the
my apologies.
General, where you say as a provincial commissioner, he should have been part of the process.
Yes.
Is best placed to evaluate the effectiveness and lack thereof of teams within his province. Now, how do you relate that to evidence or testimony, let me say, that the PKTT was draining resources? They were using a lot of financial resources, which therefore deprived, and I think Major General Motsepe, and she must forgive me if I'm misrepresenting her evidence, it might be another witness, that there's a concern that the PKTT rather, they're using all this money, which should actually be applied across the board to other teams, and that in itself is an argument against the continued existence of the PKTT. If my recollection is correct as well, I think what General Motsepe also said, the use, for example, of ballistics resources as part of this multidisciplinary team reduces the number of people that are available in your laboratory to support the other detectives and team, or the rest of the work of the SAPS. And so there is that concern. And firstly, what do you say to that kind of critique? But two, if there is validity to that, is it really a matter that the dissolution decision that in any way depended on what General Mkwanazi says about the capability and the capacity of the people in his province? I don't know if you understand my two questions.
I will try to respond, and again with a disclaimer to say I'm not going to respond to what General Motsepe says, but I said I would rather focus myself on the process. Operations generally cost money, and if you are to make an impact, you definitely need the resources, not only in terms of human capacity, but also financially, technology, and others. The teams we have throughout the country are draining SAPS money, not only the PKTT. And it is because I think over the years, our budget has been reduced. But it doesn't mean that money becomes the main motivator for us to actually disband a team. I think it's all about operational effectiveness. We've had instances as recent as now with the new minister, where we actually had to approach the CARA funding to assist in police operations. So for me, I don't want to really get myself involved in whether the PKTT was draining resources, but I can respond and say that even the teams that we deploy, we come to a point where we are told there's no money and we have to reapply to the CFO for extension or actually for expansion of the budget. So it's nothing unbecoming. It's how it works. And secondly, on the resources, I think I forgot to mention that one of the things that we did, and with General Sibiya as well, was the establishment of the CIT Center at Tshwane Academy College. And at that center, different people sit. Colonel Mangena, who's a ballistic expert, sits at that center full time. We've got a GBV intervention that's sitting at the NOC in Tshwane. We've got experts, even from FCS, who are sitting at that center, looking at all alerts that relate to GBV. So it's not something out of the ordinary. Resources are drawn from different environments in support of an intervention. Thank you. Chairperson.
Second part of it was
Yeah.
where you say General Mkhwanazi should have been part of the decision because he knows better what his province requires. I suppose it's answered when you say the issue about resources is
Yes.
not an issue.
Yes. And maybe to add, the national interventions are not parallel to provincial functioning. They are in support of provincial functioning. That's why you'll find if you deploy a team and they don't actually report to the PC, it becomes a problem because they are there to edify the PC's operations. Thank you, Chairperson.
Before you conclude, General, let me take you to the
The ECG
issues
rate.
around the
Okay.
forensics laboratory that I said you should apply your mind to. Have you identified the causes of the delays in the laboratory? If so, what are the causes?
Okay. When we talk intelligence-led, it's not only about investigations, but also it means that you have to do research to understand what the problem is. And I'm going to talk generally on forensic science laboratory. Why do we have the problems we have today? And you asked, I think you said, these have been there for a long time, what has been done? One of the weaknesses within the system, and I think we have to take responsibility as management to say, over the years, I think if I look back to when I look at the figures, 1996, 1998, forensic laboratory was only receiving 300 to 400 samples a month. And at the time, there were 3.5 laboratories, half because Gqeberha was not a full laboratory. But as the years progressed, there was no strategy to actually expand because there was more crime committed, and I think it actually flooded the laboratories with more samples, whether it's DNA, whether it's chemistry, whether it's ballistics. As a result, then the labs were overloaded, and I think the infrastructure affected. And it didn't help that these machines were used to maybe processing less samples. Now you've got an overload. So again, we didn't have, when I say we, I'm actually putting myself in because even if I can't say I was not there, it's all our responsibility. Now you also have the same number of members, the same number of machinery, the same infrastructure, but the workload has increased. So having realized that problem, and I think also it would affect the output because we normally say that for your routine cases that are just, easy cases, you take 35 days to conclude them. But because of the overload, you find that cases, yes, are concluded, but it is outside the prescribed norms. I think that's what we are raising here. Then that also leads to delays.
Please hold your thought and don't forget what you are going to say next. But for me, just to have a clearer picture in my mind, can you relate the increase or compare the increase to the 300 cases around 1996?
I will give an example that for the 2 quarters of this financial year, the workload of the laboratory was around 400,000. And that is an increase again from last year where we closed the year, I think it's about 784. And remember, every week, all the 9 provinces conduct high-density operations. And from that also, we get more forensic material for testing. For all the convicts of, I think, Schedule 5, all of them have to have their buccal samples taken. That again, in terms of your DNA research or intelligence, you get more samples. So that leads to increases. And again, with the circulation of firearms and with the operations, you get more firearms. maybe what we didn't do collectively, not only as SAPS, as government, was to do estimates in terms of how do we see the crime trajectory in the next 5 years, and then we begin to plan the resources. I believe it cannot only be a police problem, it's a government problem. So in the short term, what we have done, like I said earlier, in the partnership with BAXA, is we are looking at expanding the forensic science laboratory.
I'm going to come, as you will remember from what I asked you earlier.
Yes.
I'm going to come to the solutions that you are suggesting. You were in the middle of going on with the delays and the causes, and I said, please hold your thoughts. Do you want to continue with that?
Yeah. So I think the delays would really be in terms of capacity, which we are addressing, because the Divisional Commissioner, I think out of the 10,000 that we have received, he has given 4,000 to the division. And I think all the environments within forensic, not just forensic science laboratory, are getting numbers. For example, General Mangale from criminal records and crime scene management is getting at least 600 from that number. General Mulaudi is getting 75. CI is getting 300. So there is a conscious effort to capacitate. However, at times it's like water in a drop, because as members are recruited, others leave. General Nkua was informing us, I think, day before yesterday, that 900 plus members have applied for voluntary severance package, So, it's good and all to get more numbers, but it's not sustainable. That's why we need to look at other means, and I think technology plays a role of how do we leverage on what we have to improve productivity. Because the issue of human capacity, we will never sustain it for budget, but also for attrition.
Then my other question is the delays have been there for quite a while, and why were they allowed to exist for as long as they did? You had begun to respond to that when I stopped you and asked you to continue with the causes of the delays. And addressing this question, that is, why have the delays existed for as long as they have? You said that it was partly for lack of proper planning. And do you want to continue?
In response, Chairperson, I would say that we sanctioned our risk environment to do a business continuity study. That was, I think it was done, concluded, and I can highlight areas that were listed as problems. I think it's the issue of capacity, it's the issue of equipment, the infrastructure, and sometimes it's beyond SAPS. It will be public works, like, for example, not having, like during the rain, there will be floods, sometimes there's no water, So I think in response, and maybe this is where the solutions come in, because as management, that's basically our role, to say then how do we address those? One of those is partnerships. In terms of cases that actually are placed on the roll and there is no forensic material, we have a partnership with the NPA where those cases are prioritized. That's one, and I think we've got figures. If my memory serves me well, a total of 42,212s were submitted either last year or actually the first 2 quarters. So we do push, because that's the only thing we can do for now. But also we make sure that our members work over and above the normal working hours just to cover the shortfalls. We need to move into a space where we think sustainable solutions, hence our partnership with Business Against Crime. That's really coming to the party to assist us redefine the service delivery value chain for the police. We can only do so through partnership, In terms of the figures, I actually made a request to the evidence leader that whilst acknowledging that we have got problems, but I think we could submit to the Commission a written report of the state of forensic science laboratories and maybe see if also this can help garner resources for the environment.
By when do you think you would be able to do that? Would Friday next week be too soon?
We can try and push, Commissioner. We can work around the clock. I'm sure it's something that already we have compiled. We did compile your business case analysis, so it won't be starting from scratch, but it will be building on what we already have based on the testimony that was presented to this commission.
Let me take you back to human resources.
Yes.
You said you have problems there because some members will, as you try to fill posts, other members are leaving.
Are leaving, yes.
And how do you think that can be addressed? Or should we leave that? Should we leave that? Should we leave that for the report as well?
Not really.
Yes.
Maybe it's something that I can just talk about because I think it's necessary. You cannot stop members from leaving, but you can encourage them to stay. And I must be honest with you, in the current of state that we are in, I'm not sure how many will be willing to stay. However, we do receive a lot of a request for extension. We do receive a lot of people who want to come back on contract. So we are encouraging that, but at the same time, maybe we need to look at also our recruitment to retirement strategy. How do we even retain those who are there to avoid the issue of early departure that also affects our resources?
Officer Kabela is here, Brigadier?
Brigadier Kabela,
Brigadier,
yes.
Thank you. From his evidence, we got to know that there's the ABIS facility.
Yes.
And my understanding or our understanding is that this is a very useful / efficient facility. But he told us that they are not getting optimal results from it, not because of it, but because of the lack of, again, human resources.
Okay.
Do you want to comment on this?
We advertised posts
Because
for...
he said, for example, its output, I think, if I'm not mistaken, would be in the tens of thousands. But after that output, you need warm-bodied individuals to then work through that output. But he says those warm bodies aren't there.
I think before he came, there were posts advertised for ballistics, but also in the new intake, there are also posts that are advertised. I think because we had an issue with equity guidelines, which was signed, I think, day before yesterday. So now we're going to see things happening. I think not only ballistics, but the entire organization couldn't fill any posts because of that. But beyond anything, we also encourage members who are internal. Let's say somebody is in visible policing but has got a desire or passion, for firearms, to apply for a lateral transfer. Maybe that's also what we can. I know that National Commissioner gave us 1,000 posts for lateral transfer. So we can look at also utilizing that process to make sure that there are warm bodies. The commanders also are given the leeway to headhunt, I know when I was in organized crime, there's a team that I took from a station because there was no capacity. So we also need to think creative in terms of how do we leverage on what is available to us and make sure that we build that capacity. I also request that maybe as part of that report, we also cover the issue of how we are going to build capacity for this environment, not only ballistics, but also for all the FSL environments.
Would you say that this issue is seriously on SAPS's radar screen, as I think it should be? That is the delays and what needs to be done.
As a country, we always are fixated on DNA to the detriment of other structures. So maybe after his testimony, I know we did sit with the National Commissioner, General Mulaudzi. There is a turnaround strategy that they are working on, but I think it should be on the radar, as you say.
Yes, I say so because I think it, the delays result in bottlenecks with regard to the entire value chain in criminal investigation.
Yes.
So that's why I think it should be on SAPS's radar screen. Do you want to comment on that?
I'm not sure if the Commissioner would allow me, to
No,
say.
I do.
To actually, because we did discuss, I think, post Brigadier Mkhabela's testimony, and some of the issues that he would have presented, And I think it would be fair that we actually provide this committee with a report, because my fear is that we might actually end up talking past each other, and I think that is not what I would like to do at this commission.
Thank you, General.
Thank you, Commissioner.
General, can I just check about that report? Having discussed Brigadier Mkhabela's evidence, will that report be as specific or particularized as to include addressing the issues, specific issues that he raised as matters of concern?
Yes.
So that we know what is SAPS's response to those kind of concerns?
Yes, Commissioner.
It does that.
It
Thank
will.
you.
Thank you.
And please, I know that Brigadier Mkhabela's testimony focused on ballistics, and we are by no means limiting you to that. Please, that's why when I introduced the subject, I referred to delays in the laboratory. So my focus is not necessarily on ballistics only.
Thank you, Commissioner.
General, we are at the conclusion of your statement, and you can take the Commission through the last two paragraphs. Alternatively, you can always read them into the record. The choice is yours.
Thank you very much, Commissioners. I'll start by saying that I think July 6 was a game changer for most of us in the police, particularly the leadership, because it painted a picture of a not so proper and upstanding organization. And I want to submit to you today that in my capacity where I sit, I take what I do seriously. And not just me, but there is a lot of police officers, and I think some of them came here to testify, who chooses this country over and above their families. In one of his testimonies, National Commissioner said, this job doesn't give you a life, and that is for a fact. So we are here not to be served, but to serve, and we do so with dignity and with honor. And I think on hindsight, I'm not sure if the Commissioner would allow me to read that
Yes.
In getting involved in the disbandment process, it was because of the vocation or the position that you hold as instructed. And however, I think upon realizing that General Mkhwanazi was not in the process and actually didn't know about it, I expressed serious misgivings. And I also commend him, not that I want to join the queue of social media, but he called out what most didn't, and maybe because he was the most affected. And moving further, and I know that we have the nicest National Commissioner who's also very operationally strong, if I may add. But I think he has an obligation to protect us as executive under his command from political exposure. It is difficult to work with people who, I think we would call them in organized crime, politically exposed people, the PEPs, And I think the proximity between the executive, not only for SAPS, I think in government, should really be drawn, maybe one of the recommendations from the Commission, because this is where problems start. Once we have that close proximity to the Minister, then lines get blurred. And I think the executive authority, who's the accounting officer, also does not know how to manage the department. And I submit that I think the Minister ought to have taken time and effort to orientate himself with how SAPS works and probably consult not just individually, but as a collective, executives, to share his vision. I'm one of the beneficiaries of his projects, the SAPS BAXA, that's his project, the CSIR project, and allow us to operationalize his vision in line with his constitutional mandate. And for that, Commissioners, I thank you for the opportunity to be able to come and present myself to you. Thank you.
Commissioners, I have no further questions for the witness.
Thanks, Ms. Powe. Thank you very much, General.
Thank you.
Ms. Powe, what happens next?
Chairperson, Commissioners, there are no other witness scheduled for today. This will be the conclusion of our evidence for today.
So do we resume at 9:30 on Monday?
Yes.
Let us adjourn until 9:30 on Monday.